All right, it's Wednesday, and there is traffic. And in a few hours, we will have a meeting of the Star Trek Adventures group, but not to play a new adventure. We will be, completing the current adventure by going through the experience and reputation process. And I have to say that I'm really grateful to Ron and Casey, for being available tonight to do that, without an attached adventure. I'm shying away from saying without an attached game because this is part of the game, and interacting about the game is part of the game, and that kind of stuff. But in my reflections video, the only short video that I've released this week, so maybe it's one that people have watched. I made the announcement that my time as the game master for first response has come to an end, which was not an easy decision for me. This reflects a skill that I've learned rather than a reflection of my nature. I like long form play. I like stable groups. I like when games continue, and I find it hard to end a game. And so I hope that either one or both of the other players will want to pick up the reins, or to at least try being a game master and run their own campaign of Star Trek Adventures, or their own one-shot or whatever. I hope that will take place. But regardless, we've reached the point where I have to step away from the role. My involvement in Star Trek Adventures First Response has to change or end. So, I'm grateful that even though there's no more campaign stuff coming from me as the game master, that Ron and Casey are willing to play tonight and have allow me the sense of completeness from seeing how play affected their characters through reputation and through experience. How are they seeing the characters now, and how do the tools available to them in experience and in reputation, how do they speak to them now? Where are these characters going? And so I really appreciate that is taking place. And I really appreciate these reputation rules. I don't know if they were intentionally designed to produce the effect that I see in them. I hope that they were. But that you can answer the questions and think about how the events of play mattered to your character. And you can answer the questions, or share those answers to your questions, and have them play through the group and get people's reactions, or like well, what about this, or oh, totally, and wind up having a clearer idea of where your character stands, looking at the world through your character's eyes about what they did, but also getting to hear people talk specifically about your character and what they did, and how that might be interpreted by Starfleet or whoever. And there are events in Court of Opinion Part 1, and there are events in Court of Opinion Part 2, which may stick out to people for all of the questions, maybe, but definitely for some of the questions, like the really tough questions, like was your mission successful, is a huge question. But things like How will the players feel about the pair of questions? Did the character distinguish themselves, or did they dishonor themselves, or were they derelict in their duty? Right? Those kinds of questions. How will they strike each individual about their character, and then how will they strike the Greek chorus of judgment kind of thing? And it's not exactly an internal process, but it's not exactly an entirely external process. It walks this interesting line, which invites discussion, or maybe in some episodes would invite honest debate about something. Certainly not this episode. I think this episode was pretty clear cut. There is villainy, and there are a lot of victims, and there has been a dedicated through line of wanting to rescue the crew, the victims, rescue the crew of the Potemkin. It's been really one of the highlights of this episode that it was seen that way, that the politics in Starfleet were evident in terms of the vagueness of the mission, and so there are an awful lot of cool things that were presented in the episode, and the episode itself offered a lot of opportunities that could have gone, depending on the dice, depending on situations and choices and things, could have taken us in a variety of directions. And I, just sitting here now after play and thinking about the reputation rolls ahead, I can't really think of any unsatisfying directions that play could have gone in those terms. Either we could find an action adventure series of events and decisions in this setup, or we could find moral and ethical debate. We could find social conflict, or some mix thereof, and so I think there were lots of opportunities, and looking back, it was interesting the way that the players chose to approach the challenges that were ahead of them, and their, like I said, their not unique focus, their focus on rescuing the crew of the Potemkin. And when the session ended last week, because we'd gone over time, but also because the way things played out meant that the two main characters were separated from the actual rescue mission, not by their choice. I mean, they were whisked away. Game mechanics were invoked, and what they were trying to do, end hostilities aboard the Potemkin to enable rescue, to maximize the number of people who could be saved, right? That plan was balked. They were prevented from doing that. So we don't have a scene of Ensign Yang, fighting his way through, smoky and atmosphere venting corridors to try and find his brother Joshua. That doesn't happen, and we don't have some kind of showdown between Korsakov and Anders about their relationship in the past, or how things turned out, or any of those things. Instead, we wind up in desperate straits requiring desperate measures, and Yang and Korsakov rise to the occasion, barring a little bit of panic on Yang's part, to basically prevent the massive threat that Anders represented from being finalized, from taking its final form and all that stuff. So what we can imagine is that they'll be viewed as heroes, once all the logs are read or listened to or watched, once all the reports are written and assessed, once all the debriefings are done, how can we imagine a situation where these characters and the supporting characters around them aren't viewed as heroes? Well, the dice will help make us more impartial, and the dice will also insert the obligation, maybe, to not just see them as returning heroes, but to demand that they be promoted or something, right? If they get enough commendations, then there are some pretty extreme effects. And likewise, the dice might turn up with a whole truckload of reprimands, and what will that mean? How will we interpret that? And it's because of how this works that as the episode was ending, that I latched on to the idea of, rather than in the moment just kind of exercising my my game-given fiat as this kind of GM in this kind of game, to declare the number of survivors aboard the Potemkin, I decided to wait. The Potemkin itself is a write-off. Those what I imagine is a very small number of you who watch the videos and see the annotations, will already be aware of the desperate plight of the Potemkin as the short battle gutted her, right? The Avicenna did some significant damage and contributed to the weakening of the Potemkin by knocking out sensors and other effects. But the abuse piled on the structure trait, the structure system of the Potemkin by the Gorn did her in, advancing her to the point where, in game terms, she's called destroyed. And this condition is reached before Korsakov and Yang and Finch go over in the Febris, the Sulk, and the Fontana to take on their role in the rescue mission. So what does it mean to be destroyed in Star Trek Adventures? Well, you have two different ways to approach it. You have the full rules, and you have the leaner NPC battle rules. So if you have a fleet of Klingon ships and a fleet of Federation ships, it would be a lot of bookwork to not much of a benefit for all groups to have to do every point of damage to every ship to cause very specific effects. So the NPC rules lighten that load on the game master by giving you a different list or a different definition of what impact, disabled, and destroyed mean. So they give you some flexibility, and they leave it up to you to decide how you're going to approach damage, as do many games. Right? So the Gorn ship I handled from its arrival in the episode to its destruction, I handled purely as an NPC. And that I felt that intersection of that system and my interpretation of the situation, my description of the situation, can give that moment a certain degree of power. The alien energy wave strikes the already damaged Gorn ship and overwhelms it and destroys it. And we've already seen the devastation that this energy wave can cause in the pilot, in the massive Federation outpost and the terrain below. We are expecting this to be a devastating effect. And so if the Gorn ship is disabled and hanging in space, then it did flash through my mind that if both ships wind up in that condition, then it presents a pretty interesting and relevant choice to the crew of the Avicenna. Do they rescue their allies, or do they rescue the crew of the Potemkin, or do they try and, make some kind of effort to rescue both, right? Not easy. And for expedience and tighter focus, I went for destroying the Gorn ship and not introducing yet another dilemma into play. And maybe in the future I'll regret that decision, but it seemed right in the moment, and that's all I had. But when we get to Korsakov and Yang and Finch heading over to the Potemkin, the Gorn plasma weapon has destroyed the ship. Now, in game terms, destroyed through structure breaches means that repair slowly becomes more difficult, and then it becomes impossible, and the ship is dead. It doesn't have to be interpreted as dust, but its life support systems are failing. It's venting atmosphere. There are fires, and for all intents and purposes, the ship cannot be reclaimed and repaired without space dock or something like that. So the situation is dire and desperate. The ship is dead. What about the crew? Well, because by transporting Korsakov and Yang over to the station, because I'm denying them the ability to do what they were there to do, let's say, and forcing them to face Anders in a original series style showdown, whether that turned out to be yelling or fisticuffs or both. And it seemed pretty satisfying in the moment that it turned to fisticuffs, and then Korsakov being able to outrun and outshoot his former captain. I think for me at least, that was a satisfying turn. But we can't overlook the fact that there was no way for the main characters to affect the outcome of the Potemkin. And we could have, had there been more time, had we decided to play another session, that kind of stuff, we could have cast them in the role of some supporting characters and played through some of the rescue. But at a certain point, there's this feeling of, when will it end? Where will it end? Where are we? Are we, is this happening after the thing on the station? Is it happening at the same time as the thing on the station? There's a whole bunch of stuff to take care of. And so as we'd already played for 5 weeks, these were decisions that popped up and were made in the moment. And so I didn't actually talk about the crew at the end of the episode, as it struck me that I didn't just want to decide. It's voyaging too far into pure storytelling. Despite the fact that this was all so very important to you during the entire episode, I'm just going to decide that, yay, most people survived, woohoo, or everyone was lost. And never having delivered an opportunity for the actual rescue part, right? I actually and intentionally spent threat to end the scene of that rescue and start again in a different situation. So in recognition of all of that and my reasons for it, I want there to be some system involvement in how many of the crew survived. And so one of the things I'm looking forward to from the use of the reputation system is seeing how these two characters are perceived and seeing how the results of the reputation roll get spent by the players. And if it's overwhelmingly positive, then, especially for Yang, if it's overwhelmingly positive for Yang, then we can be pretty sure that Joshua survives. And there's good logic for that present in the episode, because when we meet Anders, he hasn't been exposed to vacuum. He hasn't been exposed to toxic coolant leaks or any of those things. He's fine. Unlike some of the other crew members of the Potemkin who are vented out into space or who are battling the security crews and so on. So as Joshua is bridge crew, we can reasonably extrapolate that he was wherever Anders was, and could be in a position to be rescued, especially after the destruction of the alien device and the resulting freeing of all the captured minds. So, overwhelmingly positive, lots survived. Overwhelmingly positive for Yang, his brother survived. Overwhelmingly negative, not enough, for public opinion, were saved. Overwhelmingly negative for Yang, his brother was not rescued. And that's enough use of system to ease my feelings of, not exactly guilt, but to reconcile how the end of the episode comes about, right? That there is still system involvement in the outcome. It's not just my arbitrary decision, and it's not me being influenced by liking the characters or not liking the characters or any of those things. There's still system supporting it. Now, I could, of course, play out the rescue with a whole bunch of NPCs and a lot of dice rolling, or I could abstract that into a percentage chance, or just abstract it into a percentage roll, this percent of the crew. There's lots of things I could do, but all of those things are just me off by myself. This way, I can interact with the players. And I think this opens us up to understanding more of the kind of effect this type of mechanism can have, right? Maybe normally people don't have a whole lot to question about the results because the dice behave like dice, and you wind up with commendations or reprimands or a mix of both, and that makes a certain amount of sense. Or it causes enmity, like, I can't believe I was punished by Starfleet, and wind up with it creating future stories for you, some kind of struggle between this crew and their superiors in Starfleet, and as we see more in the Star Trek movies than we ever do in the Star Trek series. But anyway, so I think that'll be fun to see how that comes out. And so anyway, this was supposed to be a short introduction. I've been talking for 20-something minutes, so apologies for that. So we will be looking at experience, and hopefully we'll have enough time and to actually complete the whole experience process, and we can see what the players want to change about their characters. I'm looking forward to that. Or if they instead want to defer to some of the supporting cast, we will see the Spotlight Milestone come into play, one for Yang and one for Korskov, because of the way that play went across the two episodes. It kind of eased that struggle we had with it the last time. none of us are fans of the vote for the this, that, or the other thing player, which automatically leaves other people out, and frankly, I do find some utility in mechanisms like that, but I find they have diminishing utility. Like when you're introducing a new style of play, and the reward mechanics reward a certain style of play, and people see that and say, oh, that person is being given that extra point that only one person can get in this game, then there's the possibility that sets the light bulb off. But that kind of reaction isn't that hard. It doesn't take that long, and pretty soon, if you're with a group that's all pulling in the same direction in regard to wanting to play together, then suddenly everybody is legitimately earning that point that only one person can get. So you either stop using it altogether, so it has no utility, or you keep just giving it to one person, which is not fair and likely to make things uncomfortable, or you just give it to everybody who's earned it. And so anyway, not a big fan of the spotlight mechanics is what I'm saying. So, but I did want to see what the players would do with the opportunity to explore the spotlight milestone for their character, because it's what allows slightly bigger changes, some actual changes to the character rather than shifts of focus, and I'm quite fascinated. So to wrap up, we will learn the ultimate fate of the crew of the Potemkin, and we will see how these experiences further shape and direct Yang through the experience system, and we will learn more about their reputation within Starfleet and aboard the Avicenna. And we will be saying hello to a new game master, or we'll be saying goodbye to Star Trek First Response. And, I don't know. But so if you've come, as I like to say, if you've come this far, you're a real road warrior, but you've got the real meat of the video ahead. And if this is the last video that gets made about Star Trek Adventures First Response as itself, then thanks for being a part of the journey. And there will be videos about Star Trek Adventures in the future, because I'm still playing it. And there may be specific examples drawn about Game Master mistakes, or how to do certain types of scenes or whatnot in the future. Who can say? But anyway, enough of me. On to us and all that entails.
Working.
Starting in order of rank, that brings us to Korsakov. So we have the very, very difficult question, right? Was your mission successful?
My document, which I've uploaded to the chat, says debate. And I don't really mean that in the sense that we should debate it, because I don't want to have a debate about it. I'm saying that if I were Starfleet, I'd have to have a debate. Therefore, just as with the negative influences, some directives seem right. I mean, if the whole galaxy or subset of it is innocent by default, which I kind of think it is, then we saved it, and that's protecting the innocent, right? Rescuing the innocent from what clearly was a threat, what is arguably a potential mega terrorist attack, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. In terms of bringing the Potemkin back with a whole bunch of deprogrammed inhabitants, no. So I guess, and so I mean, it's the mission is all the directives, right? So I guess it's a yes, but certainly a certainly a yes on the if I guess it's a no for both, for the positive and the negative, and then yes for both in the positive and negative. I guess is the only way I could see it, and I'm okay with either. I'm okay with either. It could be a no for both or a yes for both, and I'm good with the whatever makes most sense to the other people here.
So it's definitely up for debate, right? Was the mission
Sadly.
successful? Because what I heard in play was that there was the mission that Starfleet gave, which everybody protested, like in character, was ambiguous, right? Return with the Potemkin, rescue the Potemkin, kind of thing, and people were rightfully concerned about the crew. So I think this is interesting and can be answered interestingly, especially with the split, the positive and negative influence. What is Starfleet going to say? Why did they have such an ambiguous mission? Was it plausible deniability or something along those lines? So Korsakov would feel what?
It has to. It's kind of like I have to do both lists at once, at least for this first point. So it would be a yes successful and a yes a failure.
That's how Korsakov would feel in the privacy of his own thoughts.
I think so. Yes. As with often so many things, actually, it's I can see getting a double yes or a double no a lot of the time.
I think that's why we have this kind of structure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I like that.
So what does he see as the success?
That again, I'm thinking not just of the assigned Starfleet command so much as the directives of that we have running at all times, and so some of them are specific to the mission as assigned, and some of them are intrinsic to the ship. From the ship's point of view, we had to take direct action to prevent massive harm to all and sundry. And under those circumstances, then sacrifices must be made. I mean, whether we were blown up and the Gorn ship got out of there, or did something similar to whatever we did, they probably had enough knowledge of the artifact to do something themselves. It's more than an artifact, the hideous thing. So it might have been us who were blown up and them who completed this, or whatever part of it, or it was the other way around in our case. But either way, that mission to do things like that is just on us at all times, and we completed that. And we would have completed it if we'd all been blown up and the Gorn had succeeded, just as a potential opposite outcome. So that's true. So I think that as far as all the different directives are concerned, I can name a directive or two that I think we did.
Cool. Did you distinguish yourself in the execution of your mission? You had no idea.
Yeah, that's I hate this. Well, I'm saying this wrong. When I say I hate this question, I'm not,
No, I get it.
Hostile. Just like this question always throws me off my horse every time. That's what I mean.
If it helps, the way I interpret the question is there's doing your duty, which is a later question. Did you fulfill your duties? This one is, does in the back of the character's mind, do they think that someone somewhere will give them a medal? For,
Ooh,
like
yeah, I see. I can't go there. That one's
conspicuous
really hard on me.
gallantry,
Yeah, I don't know.
that kind
Uh,
of stuff.
yeah,
This
that
is the
phrasing of it
epicenter we're
doesn't help
talking
me
about.
very much. Yeah. But I think that if I look at a couple of things, one was to try to support the captain, to facilitate the Gorn integration into the crew, to talk to, to get Mondragon's spirits back up, to and then finally being smart enough not to just duke it out with Anders. I punch him, he punches me, and then I'm like, stupid. you know Stuff like that. So decision making in the moment, interactions with others, is the only thing that I can focus on. And he didn't screw up any of that's what I'm going to go by, is that those were good portraiture decision moments for him. And so since it's all about myself, then I guess it has to be yes. Although
Sure.
sometimes in this one I kind of wish there was a neutral option where you get
it just
but
pass.
yeah, pass. But that's,
Yeah.
if I
think Starfleet
perhaps
would take
self-servingly,
notice, of standing there within a few meters of this device, which revealed it was generating, lethal energy and phasing it to the point where it explodes and needing emergency beam out and that sort of stuff. I think it would be difficult for the organization to ignore that kind of thing, because Korsakov, as first officer, could have sent a bunch of security officers to fulfill that task. He didn't have to do it himself, that kind of thing.
I have more dice.
Okay, so we're gonna go with yes for that one.
Yeah. I'm equally. I swear. After these first three, I swear I'm no more. I'm
Yeah, I
not a
see.
problem anymore.
Yeah.
But
You don't
but
remember?
this third one.
Or,
Well, this is the thing. I mean, it says positively use one or more of the mission directives. Do I recall correctly that we actually did finally make use of those rules?
you didn't have a point to spend. It had already been spent.
Right. We talked about it. Yeah. So in that case, that has to be no.
Well,
or no. Explain if I'm wrong.
what I was thinking of, was that you got the mission from Starfleet, which was ambiguous, and the crew all seemed to be feeling similarly about it, but the captain was kind of a mystery, right? He seemed to come on board to hunt down his old friend Anders, and that was very much on his mind. But over the course of the episode, he changes. And the referencing of this directive appears in each session of the episode, right? It was constantly in front of play, right? So it wasn't oh crap, I'm in danger, I need some way to spend determination. Hey, I'm going to suddenly believe in the mission of the Avicenna. It was the mission of the Avicenna guided character play all the way through to the end, and it would have to influence the NPCs of the stripe that we have Wilkinson in here. So we have often used values when we couldn't actually do the mechanism of spending a point in order to reinforce character, right? So I feel that this question is more about, are you playing the character in terms of their job and their values, or not?
That's a pretty solid yes.
Right. I think so. So I don't think that whether or not you can actually use the point of determination when the value or the directive is invoked matters. I think that it's the mattering that matters. Like, hey,
So
toughen
okay.
up suddenly connects with this scene. So, and then everybody remembers that this is one of Borsakov's values, and or to hell with the phonies and stuff like that.
So in that case, we've got yes, 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 which is
It's a good
pretty
start.
nice. And then fulfill the duties as an officer of Starfleet. I was thinking of what I was commanded to do, and it's true that Captain Wilkinson did ask as well as command. He did a lot of asking as opposed to commanding or recommendations and stuff like that. But turning that around and saying, okay, as commanded, yes, independently of whether we actually were able to save people. I really wanted to have a bunch of people saved off the Potemkin, but
well, there are
regardless of whether
things
we did.
put in place to facilitate that early on, like before hostilities were opened.
Oh, right. But that's not what I'm talking about right now. What I'm talking about is like what, did I do as commanded? I can't think of any time where I didn't.
Right. This is
Unless
different from previous episodes where there has been
right.
some friction between levels of command, even if it was just kind of in the privacy of his own room.
Right. But in this one, it seemed as though I did the duties. I was the first officer. I went and did first officer stuff.
Yeah. You saw that all the horses were fed and watered.
Yeah, and I didn't like try to take over the phaser fire and the phaser console, despite itchy fingers. Right.
Push him out of the way. Okay, so that one's a yes.
All right. So prevent conflict, avoid escalating hostilities. No. Common grounds. No. Did I take action to aid those in urgent need? Well, the issue is proper concern for the health and safety of the crew and others. Well, yeah, we had to risk them. I mean, so in the conditions of accepted risk, part of our job is taking on risk, then proper safety, drops. I'm thinking about the protocol, the protocol to soup the ship, right?
Yeah.
Which puts us at risk, but the idea is that did you take all action to render aid? Which of these needs to drop? Rendering aid or health and safety of the crew? Well, health and safety of the crew has to drop. So if that's the trade-off, then we took the right trade-off, or we tipped it the right way. So I'm going to call that one a yes.
Sure. And there's the consideration that it's better for the Avicenna to arrive first. Like, it's not just a tactical.
Critical. Yeah, it's critical. Yeah.
Sure.
My answer to the last one isn't actually all that serious. Did the mission outcomes reflect positively on Starfleet or the Federation? I said to save everyone from an ancient solar system buster, yes. And I was thinking, I don't know why, but strangely enough, I was looking at this from the point of view of the Gorn people and administration. Strangely enough. It was like, who decides whether this reflects positively on Starfleet or the Federation? Well, the Gorn decide whether this reflects positively. They threw their people into the water with us. How did that go? So I don't know if that's legit or not, but that's where my mind went when I was thinking about this. And it seems to me that, somebody wasn't coming back from there probably. And we all just sort of accepted that. Somebody may not be coming back. And if the Gorn care about not being blown up, they sent the only available little powerhouse they had with important people on it. I think it reflects really positively on the Gorn, the whole thing. Actually, I think it really reflects positively on them a lot. So I'll say maybe it's fair to reverse it and say if we hadn't come back, then maybe that would reflect well on both of us, both ships, right? Whoever comes back, it reflects well on both ships. That's how
Right.
I'm seeing it. I don't know how Starfleet looks at that, but that's where the role comes in.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But
So I had to look at it from the point of view of the Gorn. I had to get outside the whole Federation to think
yeah.
that to think about it.
And it's
Taking a
not.
really long time on this. I'm sorry. I'll go
No.
quickly on the others.
That's it's the meat of it, right? We need. It's part of characterization, but the the notion that it's not like you suddenly decided to, well, we've got to respect the alien culture because of the Prime Directive. So, they're a galaxy conquering species, so
If
we've
you're,
got to
yeah,
respect
what is the idea? The validity of your alien culture stops with the people pod. If you have people pods,
it.
no, no, no.
There's the
There's a hard
line we
line
just
there.
crossed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
all right, so let's
so
review. Mission successful
1,
from.
2, 3, 4,
Oh, you've got a number. Good.
6.
Okay. Now we go into the negative influences, and of course, there are more negative questions than positive questions on purpose because game. Was your mission a failure?
By the logic we talked about, we're matching the yes upstairs with this yes downstairs.
Okay. So we can
Um,
feel the Starfleet that we have kind of feel emerging from play and feel being introduced by me into play through the NPCs. There would be some pushback on this outcome.
Perhaps, certainly, but I also think, I think you mentioned at one point that the captain, our new captain, is big on, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm
Yeah.
working with what you're saying. The captain, as played, really kind of represents the best of Starfleet ideals in a lot of ways, or at least a particular best in Starfleet ideals. He we've seen that Starfleet is careerist. We've seen that it's riddled with status and legal ambiguities and face saving and deniability, like you said. But that doesn't mean it sucks. We're not in crapsack Star Trek, right? We're not in
Right.
evil Star Trek. We're not in Mirror Mirror. We're not in they're all bastards up there, in the admin.
Right.
There are some. We get that. But with the idea that there are at least, there are people there who can say, yeah, we didn't get the Potemkin, and that sucks, but you did save the galaxy, and I guess we're all technically innocent in the eyes of Gene Roddenberry. So, we're
The great
we're
bird of the galaxy.
exactly. But you're good on you. You didn't kind of a bummer, but good on you. So there's somebody in around who's going to look at it that way. I think possibly. Disgrace yourself? I don't think so.
I couldn't
Not sure.
imagine a
Yeah,
yes
I'm having
here.
yeah, okay, I appreciate that because I'm trying to wonder what that even looks like, but I'm in play. I'm not
Maybe,
saying it's impossible.
yeah.
I'm wondering what is that. So,
Well, like Yang with his fear of transporters.
oh,
What if he
right,
refused to
right.
go on the mission because of how the dice turned, and then that would certainly go on somebody's report. Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah,
Something
it's
like
kind of nice to have negative traits and stuff to
yeah.
risk that. I
Captain
get that.
Kirk killing Finney in the Ion Storm on purpose. Okay, so no.
Challenge. Okay, no. So look, take it down. I don't think I challenged the directive.
Nope.
Didn't. Yeah, I didn't. I didn't cross off any of them.
No.
No, I don't think I was derelict at all. Were the
Nope.
personnel killed under? See, personnel under my command killed.
Right.
I don't think so. No,
Right.
unless I missed someone. Tell me because I didn't comb the episode.
No. The this if you had taken people with you somewhere,
Right, and then we saw them die, or yeah,
yes,
but I
then
couldn't think
that's
of anybody, so I
this
said no.
question. Yeah. So it falls on
And
Wilkinson
so
if it's just somebody on the ship.
yeah,
So
innocent lives lost. I said you decide, but I think that was just me being wimpy. I think that's the yes. There were the people on the Potemkin were innocent, and their lives were lost.
Right. The crew were victims of the
Right,
possessing
exactly,
force. Yeah.
exactly. It's very difficult to help somebody who is working extremely hard not to be helped, but that's no excuse.
Right.
So I'm putting a yes on that one. I don't think that I am to any ends other than the defense of self-ship crew or innocent life. Innocent life, I'm afraid I'm going to have to invoke the galaxy. The galaxy is innocent life.
Right.
You know, we employed force to defend them.
Right. Not to kill Anders because you hate him.
Right. And then did we employ lethal force? Yes, we did.
Lots of it.
Yeah. Did you take unnecessary risks? I said no necessary each time. And that seems really definitive in my little document. And I'm kind of looking at the guy who wrote this document last night. And I'm saying right now, really?
Why? What seems unnecessary in this
I don't
moment?
know. Maybe it was just that the situations were so desperate and called for so many quick decisions of what to do in the moment that it's hard for me to.
So you had no control about going to the station.
No,
So it
we
wasn't
got
a
stuck
risk you
there.
took.
Right. That's true. And
Shuttle ride to
I'm
the
thinking,
Potemkin.
yeah, I'm thinking about I don't know. I think it was. I'm going to call necessary.
Yeah.
It was
I don't mind that.
risky as hell all the way, but each time was like, oh my god, I have to take that one. So,
Right.
and I don't think unethically or illegally. I can't think of anything.
Right.
Unless there's contrasting opinions, I'm not going to push back on those.
Or permit a colleague to do so. So I mean,
Trying to think about anybody doing unethical or illegal things.
Well, the Wilkinson Protocol.
The
can
Wilkinson
be a little
Protocol.
sounds a little iffy, if you want to look at it at a certain point.
Well, it may fall into the realm of. I mean, I personally thought of that as a necessary risk, but whether it was unethical, no, because it was. I think it was necessary. I don't see it as unethical. Were we told it was illegal? I mean, unorthodox, certainly. I get
Unorthodox, removing some of the safety standards and allowing the rerouting of power in ways that caused a significant portion of the crew to have to huddle together and, but I don't think we can go into unethical. This isn't stealing dilithium crystals from a primitive culture or Captain Tracy wanting to be immortal, and so let's kill all the
converting an
Yangs.
entire world to Nazism.
Right, yeah.
Right,
That kind
for
of
example.
stuff. Yeah. Taking a great risk with the ship. I mean, maybe a comparable example from the series itself is Kirk making the decision to risk the Enterprise to go back in time to correct something.
Right.
Certainly not standard operating procedure of the vessel. Except for that one episode where it was standard operating procedure of the vessel. But forgetting that episode, all the other times it was an accident.
All right. Well,
so
I'm going to go with no then. I'm hearing a lean toward no, if that makes sense.
I think it's safe.
Okay.
Risky,
so that puts,
yes, which you've already answered.
Yeah.
But,
so I'm up with 6 against 3.
Cool beans.
Here is. Oh, target number? Sorry.
Well, I have a history of doing this wrong, so I would like to have the math in front of me before I actually say anything. Okay.
Target number should be 7 plus reputation.
7 plus reputation. Believe. I don't think anybody has used this system to improve their reputation. So this is a 10.
Okay. So in that case, I get 1 success on my 5 dice here, but I have to roll. Wait, my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dice. So I have to roll 1 more die.
So you get a number of d20s equal to the positive dice.
Right.
Yep.
And that gives me 1 whole success out of 7 dice.
Out
or
of
6
7
dice.
dice. How does that make you feel?
No, sorry, 6 dice, not 7.
6.
And
Against
so
the difficulty of what was the difficulty?
10. Oh wait,
No,
difficulty.
yeah.
Right, sorry.
Yeah.
Number of
Did you
successes
roll
needed to
less
succeed.
than 3?
Yes, one of the single successful die was a 2.
Then that is
Double
2
success.
successes.
Well,
like your
2
focus.
successes out of 6 dice. Good enough.
Okay.
Now I get to
Roll
roll
any
3
20s?
dice. Yeah, I know.
No 20s?
And, wait.
Did you roll any
20s.
20s?
Oh, did I roll? I rolled no 20s.
Okay.
No, you would have heard my little shriek.
Okay.
So here comes the 3 dice for the negatives. And in those, and again, it's the same 10 or under.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, I get a single 9, and the rest are failures.
The negatives set
determines
the
your
difficulty.
Right. So I understand. What I'm saying though is that if we were talking about 10 or less, is the
No, I mean
question.
that the
Oh,
negative
sorry.
influences are the number of successes you needed to roll.
Okay. Okay. Good enough. Never mind. We'll roll that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I knew that.
This is why I like
All right.
to read it and go through step by step, because for
I
some
know.
reason
It's too easy. It seems so nice to have like a die pool rolling against each other. It just seemed to.
Yeah,
I don't know.
seems
It's
to
what I
make a
thought
certain
of
amount of sense.
in the moment. But okay. That stated, we are up against a result of 2, but I had a difficulty of 3.
Right. Okay. So that leads to each success scored above the difficulty becomes a commendation.
So no commendation, obviously.
Each die that fails to meet the difficulty becomes a reprimand. So you rolled 6 dice, and it's saying each die. This turns into 5 reprimands.
Ooh, tough.
And there were no 20s harmed in the filming of this roll. Okay.
Wow, so that's a lot. You can really end up with. That's kind of interesting. Like the more yeses you have, the more chance of a reprimand you have.
The more yes
Wait,
in the
more
negative.
yeses that you have, which
No,
are
it
just
works
dice,
both ways, I guess,
pre-roll. Yeah, exactly.
The potential of getting more reprimands from the dice, from a larger dice pool, is as high as failing with a higher target difficulty.
Right.
Yeah. So you get some buffer if your reputation
Right.
is higher.
Right.
Yeah.
If, just so I understand the system a little bit more too, say I had exceeded my negatives, my successes exceeded the difficulty, do you still count the failed dice as reprimands?
No.
No. Okay. All right. So you fail to meet the
like a
difficulty,
line.
and then all the failed dice become the degree of failure,
Reprimands.
There you go.
which means, so the more dice you have as yeses, the worse a failed outcome becomes. Right.
That seems to match what I see in the dice.
Okay.
Right. I'm more likely to be successful with more dice. But if I'm not, there was a reason.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, many reasons.
Yeah, evidently, yes. 5 with a name, each with a number. With little code. Yeah.
All right.
You
now,
are in violation of.
Yeah. Were you holding any reprimands? I don't think so.
I actually am wondering whether I have my course stop over here. I know that I actually was working with.
Maybe you did in the last one.
I did.
Maybe you had
I had one reprimand standing, according to this sheet.
Did you roll any 19s?
Ooh. I don't think so. No,
I think you
I
would
would
have
have.
said
I probably
you
would have
usually say.
shouted almost,
Yeah, you
in a
usually do.
dicey way. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um,
okay. So with five exciting reprimands in hand, there are a variety of things that you can buy. Tell him what he's won, Johnny.
yeah, really. I can't wait.
There is the big one.
You could go for
The
the
only
big one.
one.
You could go for court
The
martial.
only one that you can pick one, yeah. You can get a court martial. It could be a continuation of Call of Opinion.
It'd be an interesting Star Trek to follow a court-martialed character as a, but it's not very Star Trek, I have to say, to do that. But maybe a movie.
How Kirk got his ship back.
Right.
Right. So it could go that way, and we can see some logic in there about the handling of the artifact and all that nonsense. But then there's the things like stripped of awards or status, right? He's an officer with a reputation, kind of thing, like Ensign Ro Laren from.
I was going to say that's okay. Go on. What's the rate of exchange here? I pick a thing for each reprimand, or
No, the
you add
different
up.
types of reprimands have different costs.
Got it. How about that reputation thing? I quite like that.
It was called status. You can see it
Yeah.
on the list, and it's a
there's
trait
two.
for the character. And
Yeah,
Right.
that's status. Or if you want to reduce reputation, as in the
Right.
number, that's costing
a variable
one
amount.
one per reputation point.
So to reduce
In-
from 3 to 2.
It's a good
Plus
question. I'm not
3.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't have to decide now. These are just things.
I was going to say, do you want me to look through the list and I'll just
Yeah.
come up with it with the
They have
with the-
different
the-
We have
and
the
variable
time. The
costs
combo.
and effects.
right.
All right. Ensign Yang.
So after taking a quick glance, I think my list is going to come out quite similar with Korsakov's, but we'll just go through and see.
I think you were in practically every scene together. Not every scene, but
Many of them, yes.
Many, yeah, most. Except the part when he went to talk to Mondragon.
right, the top secret meeting.
Yeah, and there's a little chit chat with your family that I probably, fortunately.
Oh, that's right.
Avoided.
Yes, he was one of the few people not in Yang's bedroom for that conversation.
Seriously. Seriously, yeah. Wait, what are we doing? Where are we? Hide that magazine. No, did I say that? Never mind. Pay no attention.
All right, so Yang, was your mission successful?
Yang, being the straight shooter in terms of protocol, is going to say no.
Aha.
The mission directive is the Potemkin, as in the ship. There was no mention of the crew. It is not in Yang's best interest, but that was how the spirit and the wording of the mission was stated.
Right, and the Potemkin.
Did not.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Potemkin was significantly damaged by the time you tried to board it, and things did not improve afterward. The Gorn plasma was largely responsible for the destruction of the ship. So. Okay. Did you distinguish yourself?
In the execution of your mission contribution, I think this would be a yes for Yang in terms of the maneuvering of the ship.
Yeah.
He didn't fail any of his roles this time. Which is and actually
call that a
he actually did, of all the significant tasks that was in narrowing the search areas, also Yang didn't fail those as well.
Right.
So I would say his dice odds were actually quite significantly much better than previous episodes have demonstrated.
Yeah. Yeah. And so both in and out of combat, his performance would be noteworthy under the eye of a new captain who's evaluating, the crew that he's been given for this risky mission. I think it would be hard to say that Yang didn't stand out. So definitely a yes. Okay.
Right.
Did you invoke one of the mission directives?
I put no, and I'm not being able to recall a significant moment where Yang specifically called that out. Even though we had that discussion earlier, like we used it as our guideline, but we didn't have the determination points to do so. But from Yang's perspective, I think um, it, yeah, I don't think he used it in a way to gain any significant outcome out of it.
Okay. I tend to agree. I don't remember, him using it in an argument or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Did you excel?
For the same reasons as distinguishing myself. So I think that's
Right.
a yes.
Absolutely. Prevent combat or avoid
That's a
escalating
no.
hostilities.
Yang is always in the position where it's a very clear answer of yes and no.
Right. And you
I feel the
didn't
same way.
you didn't reject
Both?
reject the
Can we
order.
have both?
Yeah. I will not put the Avicenna in position to fire on the Potemkin.
That'll be a scene.
My brother's on that ship.
Yes.
So no. And did you establish common ground or peaceful cooperation?
Yeah, I didn't have anything to say about the Gorn coming on board, so I would say no.
Okay. And all action to render aid.
I would say that one's a yes. That was his concern actually,
Right.
and against the spirit of the mission.
Right. And you flew the Fontana directly into the occupied vessel. And did the mission outcomes reflect positively on Starfleet?
So this is probably something a bit more interesting from Yang's perspective. I think it would be a no because he knows how the political game is played, and
He saw the dark side pretty badly. I mean, at least from my point of view, from the previous episode, the testimony at the courtroom, they didn't just kangaroo court us. They said, oh my God, new information. We've got to start over, which was the right thing to do. Right. So I didn't see a corrupt courtroom. I didn't see like Starfleet. I saw them be kind of careerist, but I didn't see them be terrible. You kind of saw some terrible here and there. Right. Nobody supported you in saying, screw the egotistical cadets. They need a lesson in, humility. Right. Nobody told you that. Everybody was like, oh my God, your career. Don't piss off the 16-year-olds, and so I think I am overly monologuing in my emphatic thumbs up of understanding what you're talking about.
I'm curious how you both feel about the elder Yangs' use of their position.
Well, Andrew Yang doesn't like it, so and particularly in this episode when he recognizes that his father paid some leverage to get the Gorn's information, and in a perfect world of political exchange, it should be a win-win, but it turns out the Gorn has lost in this bargain by losing an entire ship and an ambassador. So
they lost something, that's for sure.
Yeah. So,
whatever else they gained off stage.
Yeah. So from Yang's perspective, that's a loss. That's a loss for Starfleet because of the price they had to pay to get it, and it's a bad reflection from a political diplomatic standpoint, which Yang fully understands.
You asked us both. Is it okay
Yes,
if I
I
say?
asked both.
Okay.
Of you. Yeah.
Which is that I, as never having Korsakoff in the same scene as the Yang parents, Yang and Yong.
That's true.
So I'm watching basically, and I can say that I really thought that the horse trade with the Gorn was actually kind of commendable in doing it, regardless of how it turns out. It's commendable that he did that thing, right? It seemed like the right thing for an ambassador to do, and we don't see a whole lot of right things for ambassadors to do in Star Trek. They seemed a singularly incompetent bunch across the original series. So I kind of liked that. But one thing that I didn't like, if we're just talking about liking, they never advocated for Joshua as a person, right? They never invoked that or asked Andrew what he thought, or talked about, I mean, about Joshua in particular, let alone anything else. But I mean, Joshua wasn't well, and the no, there just, it just seemed to me as though there was their whole talk about how we're setting this up for you and we're paving your way and everything. It's kind of like, why do you even like us? You know, the two sons, do you even like us? And so I thought that you're back and forth about that. Remember early on, you were kind of at least tolerant of their pressure, and I was making little audience noises of, grunt, grunt, and, ow, or not liking, just audience noises, not anything else. And you said it might be a cultural thing, right? That, the parents, who knows? And but then after that, you sort of, each time your burn went higher of saying no, more and more and more no. And that's what I'm saying. I was kind of waiting for them to show the good side of that interaction, and I never saw it. I never saw it from them. So I'm kind of with you on that one. That's that dark side of Star Trek, of the Federation, that we see sometimes, right? Does that make any sense?
Careerist and egotistical.
Yeah.
Power corrupts.
Yeah. Almost crazy, actually. Power
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So this leaves us with how many positives?
So my count tells me there is 3.
3 positives. Okay.
Wow. Brutal.
Let's voyage into
I mean,
the
for
negative.
such an awesome character, I mean, it's like, really? Ouch. Ouch.
I think
It was
that's
an
why
interesting mission. Yeah, that's why I like
Yeah.
this missions.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
this checklist was going to be quite testy for Yang, I think.
Yeah.
and it sets the system sets the higher ranking characters in a position where they can send commendations downhill
Commendations down. Yeah.
to
Do I take
Right.
the hit for the young ones?
yeah. All right. Ensign Yang, was your mission a failure?
Yes.
Ah,
As this.
So you're
as for
going with
reasons
no
above.
and yes. Wow. Okay.
Did you disgrace yourself?
Disgrace yourself. I would think it's a no. Yang didn't beg from his daddy for
Really?
anything.
Yeah.
No, there is a disgrace, right? Yeah. Yeah.
He'll be
Never
a
mind
disgrace
the
for Andrew.
transporter.
Yeah.
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 And there was a scene where Yang was saying, "I would even go in the transporter," or something along those
remember that,
lines.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, right. So
It's
no.
far from disgrace. Yeah.
Challenge directive hasn't happened, so he couldn't have done it.
That's a no.
Derelict in your
Relic
duties.
Duties. I think that's a no. It's the only one I put a question mark, and because that Yang's interest was not in the Potemkin itself, but his brother. But I don't think that has caused him to,
It didn't change your actions and
tour.
his
Yeah, I
duty,
didn't
though.
really
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
detour. He still performed what he was supposed to do, and didn't step on the sideways for it.
Yes. No stealing of the Fontana to go find your
Yeah.
brother. Yeah.
Which he could have, but didn't.
Yeah. Personnel under your command, there weren't any,
come on, kid.
so you're blameless.
Always, almost always.
Innocent lives lost as a result of your action or inaction? This is an interesting one, I think,
For Yang,
for Yang in particular.
I would say yes, because his action is, setting the ship up for a perfect attack barrage.
Oh,
Which
I was
is,
thinking of
I
something
think
else.
this was the same logic I used, I think, in the first ship battles.
Right.
That Yang is always in the perfect position to say, did he use lethal force, or was the cause of was an enabler for lethal force?
Right.
Innocent lives here being, the Potemkin is, I think, for Yang especially, everyone on Potemkin is considered innocent lives.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
that's
it's
a
a
yes
rough
for
one.
Yang. Yeah.
What had come to my mind when I reviewed the questions this morning was the moment of panic when Korsakov and Yang wind up aboard the alien station. There's not enough air, and Korsakov recovers quickly, but Yang has a harder time getting himself under control. What could have been different if only I had acted faster? Was kind of what.
If you'd had like one or two more rounds of action or something like that, who knows?
No, that actually does bring back into the question about the disgrace question, doesn't it? He panicked in the face of when he shouldn't.
Yeah, that didn't come to mind.
Yeah.
But
Then,
I
yeah.
can see it as a justification if you want to make the change.
You know what? I think let's just go with yes. Not from Yang's perspective, but from how the mechanics and the system looks at that, and let's just see how that works.
So, disgrace would then change to yes,
So yes.
and you want innocent lives lost to be yes.
Yes.
Yes. Did you employ lethal force? Oh, sorry. Yes.
Wait, force.
No. Did you employ
any
force to ends
any-
other than the correct mission of the Avicenna?
We were attacking. There was no defense, so it was yes.
Oh, interesting.
I believe the Avicenna made the first shot. It wasn't
The
the
Avicenna
Potemkin.
did open fire on a vessel trying to hail them.
Yes. So from Yang's perspective, that's all on the Avicenna, including Yang.
Did you personally employ lethal force?
Personally, is there?
Did you
Is that-
employ lethal force
Yeah.
during the mission?
Well, unless photon torpedoes didn't hurt.
Photon torpedoes, phasers. These are lethal force. Yes, but you weren't firing any phasers, so we don't know. In terms of you didn't fire any photons either, right? That was Luis.
There was Montracon. So would that be a no? Again, because this is one of those like Yang enabled it. So that's why
Yeah,
I'm
it's
saying
like it's
yes.
kind of like it's like the getaway driver at the bank robbery, I guess, right?
Innocent.
Yeah.
I just drove.
I
the
didn't
car.
actually go in and take the money, right?
Right. I'm fine with it being yes. I mean, because that shows teamwork and
Yeah, I think Yang is
group
not
identity.
going, unless it was a very bad call in terms of opening fire on somebody when they shouldn't. But I think in most cases, Yang is like, I was the one who maneuvered the ship and we opened fire as ordered, so that's going to be on me as well.
Fair enough.
I was there, right?
Yeah.
And there's to put this question in another light, if you had the chance to fire phasers on stun or to fire them on kill, and you chose, I mean, because it is a choice, you have to switch it to lethal. That's what this question is about. But,
Yeah.
Unnecessary risks.
I think this one is a very strong no because of that particular scene of talking with Nickerson. It was a necessary risk and very calculated, and was actually understood that this is going to be a risk.
Okay.
Yeah.
And unethically or illegally or permit a colleague to do so. Another juicy one for Yang.
I put no, but after we had the discussion about his father and the Gorn, I'm actually starting to thinking of yes.
Wow.
There is that little ethical impasse that he's receiving privileges in that particular scene from his father to inform the captain. So that's at least.
You mean as opposed to
questionable.
telling your father right at the get-go, talk to the captain, not me?
Which is what he
Would have been the-
said. He told.
that would
Yeah,
be
he
the-
told his.
yeah.
He did say that, but the father
Yeah.
was like insistent on, you can just be the messenger, and Andrew was like, oh, what the heck.
Right.
I'm not
That's
having this
pretty harsh.
argument again.
Pretty harsh values, to live up to. I mean, you got stuck in a tough situation there.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those. It was one of the opportune moments where his father really put him in the corner,
Yeah.
and Yang really couldn't say no to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's make this interesting. Let's put this one as a yes.
All right.
You're going to take all you're taking all the reprimands with me. You're going down with me. Right.
Which is, that's the interesting thing about I'm seeing from this mechanic is that Yang's doing everything right, but in the eyes of everyone else, he's still taking reprimands for it. Yeah. So maybe that the mission as a whole is not really as smooth sailing as the crew believes it to be.
Right, which might explain the nature of the crew of the Avicenna that emerged in play. These people who
Oh, yeah.
have not been promoted.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You're always
I
never good enough.
confess by advocating for and idealizing that particular kind of concept for the ship that I brought all of this down on our own. I know.
The dice were listening.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody is, nobody inflicted that particular dynamic, on us.
But I mean, for that reason, that actually makes a very good reflection point for Yang. Like, this is what serving the Avicenna means.
Yeah. He seems to have chosen his path. That's one thing I really like from what we've done. Yeah.
All right, then.
All right.
Then that gives us a pretty significant difficulty. What I mean,
I'm looking at 3 dice against a difficulty of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
You're gonna need
3 dice against difficulty 6. Is there any point in rolling in this? Unless I
Well,
get
there-
like
it
3
is-
ones.
There is a percent chance, right? Get doubles on each, but still.
all right. So determine the target number. The target number is still 10.
Okay.
Difficulty of the roll is the negative influences, which are 6 negative influences. Roll a number of d20s equal to the number of positive influences, which was 3.
It's 3.
Okay. Each d20 which rolls equal to or less than your target number generates 1 success unless it's
Success.
lower than 3, in which case it will double.
3.
And remember, this is the guy who rolls all 20s all the time.
I did get a 3.
Cool.
Only
but
1 though.
Only one.
Only 1 though. So
Are you reputation 3 as well?
I'm reputation 3 as well. Yes.
Yeah.
So I actually have a 3, which is 2 success, a 9, which is a 3rd success, and a 15, which is a normal failure. So that's 3 successes against a difficulty of 6,
Okay.
which means that's 3 reprimands, which is
3
could be a lot worse.
Could be a lot
worse.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's actually take a look at the reprimand's spins. They sail from a very mild gain antipathy. This is the opposite of how Casey used his commendation the
His
last
favor.
time, where he gained the favor of Timmons, the ops commander on Starbase 11. Reduce reputation is the flat out the player deciding to
Right.
carry.
Diminish the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this makes all future reputation rolls harder.
Oh no,
Demotion.
it's a big thing. Yeah. It's a big deal.
Demotion, which is, I guess, what we could intuit was Mbuto's choice had he been a main character.
Right.
Dishonor by association. But this is a commanding officer only one. Stripped of awards. No one has used commendations to buy awards, so this is kind of a wash for us. Status, we talked about. This is a trait that the character carries around. Now, Korsakov has the trait of having lost a leg, right?
Right.
So his
Right.
and it works the exact
Prosthetic
same way.
leg is the way I wrote it, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's that was the way I wrote it too. So that has positive and negative influences. So
Right.
the negative status, we would look toward the negative influences first, but then you might meet someone like Harry Mudd who finds you to be very amenable because of your negative reputation. Detention, which is actually you paying to have your character removed from play.
You just decided, I guess, for I mean,
All you
putting
can use
aside
is-
putting aside some negative behavior, if we're talking about, you're saying this character has walked themselves off. The dice have been so unkind, and so on that we're going to shuffle you off and probably elevate a supporting character into main character status or
Make a new one. Yeah.
Or make a new one. Yeah.
Make a new one.
If Anders had been someone's character and had gotten possessed
For
in
example,
play,
right.
they and of course would wind up with a whole bunch of negatives as a result of that episode, may have purchased detention to have their character put in psychiatric care and
Right.
that kind of stuff.
It's a way of treating your character as a casualty of this difficult and unforgiving lifestyle.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And
I
then
mean,
the last
it's a
one-
positive outcome even. Yeah.
Yeah. The last one is court martial.
Not so positive.
Where you buy a trial, and it invites you to play through it, like the court martial
Right.
episode that we referenced earlier, and the like. It's a very expensive option, reserved for only the largest stack of reprimands imaginable, which is 5. Weirdly, we have
Strangely, yes.
But-
What are the? You didn't mention the numbers that go with each of these,
Oh,
and
sorry.
I did scan the rules, but I don't think I found the right spot, and I'm not sure they're even in the core rules that I have. So,
Right, they're not in the core rules. Well, they're in the Klingon core rules. and
right,
there's
I don't have that document. So,
If
okay, so
Yeah,
sorry.
see,
Back to the numbers.
so
So
Gain
gain antipathy is
antipathy
1.
is 1.
Right, that I know. Mhm.
Reduced reputation varies by
One-
the cost of
one
the
per
reputation,
reputation.
and you pay your current reputation as the cost. So 3 points to go to 2, 2 points to go to 1,
Got it.
1 point
right.
to go to 0.
Uh-huh. Let's skip the ones we don't have access to
Right.
go
so-
down to status.
well, we can do demotion.
Oh, okay.
Which costs 3. Stripped of awards is out.
Demotion.
Dishonor by association is out. Status costs 3. Detention costs 2. And court martial costs 5. But
Detention only costs 2. That's kind of interesting. You can actually
Yeah.
remove your character from play just for
Two
seems
failures.
kind of sensitive. No, it's case specific, obviously.
right. So
No, I guess that makes sense too. Why suffer with a character that you feel is failing out for a really long time?
It's a
right?
very
That would
easy
suck.
way to say, I want to stop playing my character.
Exactly.
there's
Yeah,
that.
which is not a bad thing.
but there's also a timeline thing, like in our case where we just had a double episode. The consequences of one character's actions might demand immediate attention, but there's a mission that the ship needs to go on, and that deserves attention. And how do we explain that the character's not there? The reprimands can make it possible for the character not to be there in a way that doesn't cause them to be demoted or have their reputation stained forever. They've done their time. They've that kind of stuff. So there's other ways to think about it. If Korsakov hadn't been involved in the trial, I think we would be hard pressed to say he deserves court martial for anything that he has done.
I don't see court martial.
Yeah.
I mean, in many ways, he kind of semi-faced that kind of conflict, for the worst, for whatever he had coming to him. That seems to have kind of been done. Certainly gain antipathy. I can definitely see that.
This also has a variable cost. One is for a typical NPC you might encounter, and you can pay more for more highly placed characters to dislike you, such as
How much would 3 get me, or 3B?
An admiral or a general or other high-ranking figure costs 2.
Ooh.
So
So higher than that's kind of like horrific, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
hard to contemplate.
Yeah,
I think.
higher than like every
Read the
single, all the
president.
Gorn, all the Gorn, right?
Right.
Yeah, all the Romulans now want you obliterated. Oh, good.
Persona non grata.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, okay. Now maybe I'm just being really dumb in listening. Reduce reputation and reduction in status, those aren't the same thing, or are they?
They're different.
No.
Yeah.
Right. Explain status to me, because I am just not flashing on that one.
Sure. This creates a trait of
Right.
distrust.
Right. Got it. Okay, I'm going to gain antipathy 2, and I'm going to have the status trait. I like that one, actually. It could operate in my favor, it could operate against me, and it's exactly what its name is. I'm not sure out of the gate, but I'm pretty sure we have all 3 of us have a pretty good idea of the set of terms that it could include. Yeah.
Right.
So I'll have to pick the right one, but I think we all know kind of where they are.
Right. So it would. The way that it's written is the word dishonor, because the genesis of these rules was with the Klingons.
Right.
But possibly we could imagine the crew of the Avicenna wondering about why the artifact was hidden, or the crew within the crew, right? Why did he build this tight crew of security officers? Was it really for our own defense, or is he plotting to take? I mean, who knows? Just grasping at straws. But there's some juicy stuff that trait.
I agree. There's plenty to work on there. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's take a look at Ensign Yang.
So I know this is
the gain antipathy. Whose antipathy were you seeking? Commodore Stone's, or?
Well, he does seem like a potential thing, but on the other hand, I see Commodore Stone as a lot of things, but I don't want to villainize him, and to do that to me would kind of villainize him.
Right.
I mean, wholly. I mean, I like the idea of Commodore Stone having kind of a dark side, but not as being just
right. Not the villain of the piece.
Evil. Right.
Actually,
I suspect that one of that either Yang or Yang might be the way to go.
That would be awesome.
Since you know them better as individuals than we have sort of seen them, I'd let it be up to you.
Interesting. Yeah. All right, Casey.
So I know it says status, as in from a Starfleet perspective, but I was thinking, could we, this requires a little bit of bending of the reading of the rules, but could I use this for the transporter accident? Because that would be just perfect 3 points of reprimands on it.
Okay. For what?
Because after he beamed out, something happened. I think I can't remember, was it a complication or something like that? But
yes, you gained a trait.
We were supposed to put a trait on Yang.
Yep.
For the transporter thing. So I don't know if that's like I'm not trying to wiggle my way out of this, but I'm just saying, like, from a mechanical point of view, it sort of makes sense that 3 reprimands, you had a transporter accident. Or would you much rather it to be much more legal status, reputation based?
Well, I would be concerned about double dipping, but the trait that was assigned was to bring Yang's fear of the transporter into a more significant, not just something that you were opting to roleplay for color, but one that mechanically influences how the character is played, has happened as a result of a complication. The status would be people being aware of it, right? and having that factor into duty
Right,
assignments, and
That's actually interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with that. That works. I don't think that's
Yang's tail
double
is
dipping.
finally getting stepped on. Because I mean, yeah, if this was gonna fly, the only thing I could think of was the gain antipathy from his roommate.
I know. It seems like
But
a
I
lot
think-
to dump on the one poor little NPC who just happens to have an opinion. I mean, a guy can have an opinion, can he? Right?
Not when it's against Yang, though, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, evidently not. Yeah.
So
But
you're
no, I
telling
like this.
me
That makes a lot of sense.
that the meeting between you and a secure subspace communication and the captain in our quarters privately with the door locked, you're telling me that you have no sway over command decisions on the episode. That's what you're telling me. You're just
The
another
guy from
crewman.
security. The guy from security. He's supposed to think like that.
Funny.
Yeah, but that will only like cost like this one, if at best three, if I had to like bring all his policies, which is I think the exact number that he had on the table.
Yeah. No, I think
Horribly
State is
tempted to ask if that fellow could be a supporting character.
But I think I don't know. I mean, tell me which one you like better. I actually do like that status of Yang's actually afraid of transporters. That's actually a pretty good thing to play on.
I think so.
Yeah, and that's doubling the effect of the transporter accident rather than double dipping. So
yes, right, because the trait wouldn't matter if there are no transporter effects, but the status matters. Period.
yeah. Although I'm only thinking because if he takes this particular status, he still has a few people on his side in terms of his fear for transporters, like Anya. They do know he has a fear for them, but she's more on the encouraging side rather than I'm going to use this against you kind of stuff.
Yes, it's not a blanket bad for.
Yeah.
It's a trait. So
Yeah.
like the Avacent itself, is a legacy design. So for its crew, that's a positive. They know it well. It helps them to repair it. Unless I decide to flip it, and it's hard to get that part because nobody makes it anymore, and that kind of stuff. So it's not just all bad all the time.
Yeah, I think
Chosen.
that's yeah. I'll take that. I'll take the everyone knows now.
Everybody knows.
Oh, everyone knows. Yeah.
Or at least someone knows, and then it's gonna get spread all over the episode 9. I don't know, hours maybe.
Maybe your roommate hears you crying in your sleep. No, not the transporter.
Yeah, he had a bad dream, and who better? So I guess this is one of the same things. Like we're gonna word this eventually, but the wording is gonna have to come up at some other point in time.
Right, you got it. Let's
I
do
think
experience.
I did.
Oh,
Okay.
what? Go ahead.
Only that I think I did come up with the right term, and all I have to do is plead that we not let this be the 1990s, because what it means in the 1990s is one thing.
Okay.
I really don't want to turn Korsakov into an utterly, a completely grimdark character. All right, that's not what I'm going for. So I'm thinking more in terms of just a quality, a trait, right? It can go either way,
Right.
and it has a lot to do with how people see him, just like you're describing. So sinister. See what I mean? It could be like, oh, he's so sinister. It's so dark.
Maybe he's just
There's shadows under his eyes. He's, no, that's not. I'm not going there. It's just that there's this sinister interpretation that people might have if they look at what has happened in some ways.
They ascribe malice where no malice is present.
Malice or some sort of mysterious, unpredictable. Yeah, and again, it sounds all swoony and adolescent. Oh, he's so complicated.
Well, having
Koshakov's gone golf.
I know, exactly. I'm trying to kind of veer sort of away from that, but it might be unavoidable given, might be unavoidable. I don't know.
Well, I grew up being perceived as a left-handed individual because I choose to write with my left. I'm ambidextrous, but so I've often had the word sinister and gauche thrown at me, so I have decoupled a little bit from the standard derivation. Okay. Experience.
Mhm.
So qualifying for experience, the characters do, but we can walk through the steps anyway. The character challenged a value or directive. There was a lot of value interaction. There were some value complications, and but of more importance was the character used at least one value or directive positively or negatively. This definitely took place for all the characters and at several points.
I was going to say maybe all the values too.
Even-
I don't know, or a lot of
Even
them.
when there was no determination too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the character was injured by a lethal attack also applies.
The Korsakov?
No, it doesn't apply to anybody. Korsakov was injured, but it wasn't a lethal attack.
Right.
He was just punched.
Was a right hook, not
Very
a,
hard, I might.
not a disruptor fire like the last time.
Right, not
Yeah.
not disruptor fire. So by dint of their use of values, they qualify. Now we had deferred our talk of the spotlight the last time because we don't like it set up. But in reviewing both episodes, there is a significant number of Yang scenes in Court of Opinion Part 1, and there's a significant number of Korsakov scenes in Court of Opinion Part 2. So I want to bring in that reward to the characters. One, to see it, but also because I think they earned it. I keep going back to the scene with Yang and Timmons as kind of like the conclusion of Yang in that storyline. It's
Right.
just so cool. Like I was totally not
It's kind of his
expecting
turning point. Yeah.
this suggestion. Like, hey, I don't want to screw those guys. I'm not here for some kind of advantage to figure out how to screw those guys. I just want to not do my job badly. And Timmons is like, dude, I love you, right? Where have you been?
Yeah.
I work at Starbase 11. I'm surrounded by politicians. So I like that quite a bit. And then Korsakov sticking to his guns throughout about we got to save the crew, and taking care of the crew as first officer.
It was very painful to me to not open those hailing frequencies from the Potemkin. That was and that's one thing, that's why I didn't take it as unethical. I thought about it, or illegal for that matter, because the fear of being mentally taken over was extremely real.
Right.
Extreme, especially with that monster thing right behind them, right? Especially with all the idea that there's this enormous amount of technology suddenly at their disposal, far more than there was back on the mining planet. I mean, come on.
Right.
So with that in mind, I gritted my teeth and said, we cannot listen. And if there are innocent people right now calling for help from that ship, well, we've got innocent people in an innocent galaxy. And I really, really felt that one. Just letting you know, that
would have been
very painful.
A real horrifying way to have played it, right? They come out of they've already beaten Anders. Like we escaped, we survived, and then we blow them to pieces.
Granted, but that's the risk that he took, that was the case.
Yeah. Because
he's
not playing
that's
a
the
game.
point.
He's
yeah.
real. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really quite painful experientially. I was going, all right, this is one of those really defining moral moments in someone's life, and that's where I actually think the Sinister might actually make a little sense.
Yeah. By reputation,
people could
he did
see him
something.
that way. He's willing to go that far. That's scary.
Right.
I'll praise him as long as I don't have to serve on the same ship with him. Sort of.
It's interesting. I mean, how would someone working in in engineering, right? They're just hearing commands to this much power for this system. How would they feel when they hear the photon torpedoes launched? Like, who are we firing at? And
it's a Federation ship. Yeah.
Interesting.
Have we even talked to them? They told us at the Academy always talk first.
Right. We just got here, and now we're firing. Were they here before we were?
Oh, that actually brings up Mondragon then, because Mondragon had to make decisions about firing, and he would have like, shouldn't we talk first?
Right.
Yeah. But we had kind of established as a trait early on that he's part of Korsakov's crew, and we didn't like afflict Mondragon with a complication or
having a conscience.
that kind of stuff. So he's still very much in line with the mission, but in that moment, right? What Ron was just saying, right? The risk is we all become possessed.
Yeah.
And Mondragon is one of the few on the crew who directly dealt
understands.
with before Jane.
He
knows what that means.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I can see him worrying about it later.
Yeah.
Did we do the right thing? But in the moment. And of course your plan was to disable the ship, right? Doing your best to try and take out its engines.
We tried pretty hard. That you're right. The original series Starship Combat in particular, which I'm not complaining about a bit, it's unforgiving, right? I mean, you're like, that's a tin can out there. Right. And there's a tin can out there and we are bombing it. So
But you showed restraint. You fired one photon torpedo instead of multiples, and
precision strikes, all the things. Yeah,
right. You didn't pay for all the extra damage you could have, and So So anyway, this qualifies each character for a normal milestone for one of the 2 episodes. And so I said that in a very confusing way. So for this episode, you'll get a normal milestone and a spotlight milestone. Okay. But Yang's is counting for the episode before.
This is his delayed spotlight.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so just let me bring up.
I'm hearing that as in 2 milestones for
That's
each
right.
of us?
You'll be getting 2 milestones this time.
Little and big.
And just have to scroll down to character development. Okay, so the normal milestone we'll just review because it is our way. If, and it's an if a value is challenged and crossed out, rewrite it. But I don't believe this happened for anybody. I'm vague on this now. I don't think anybody did that. So choose 2 disciplines. Reduce 1 by 1 to a minimum of 1 and increase the other by 1, but it's to a maximum of 4. You cannot use this to get to a 5. Or choose a focus and replace it with a focus for any reason that you like. Or select a supporting character and use one of the above options on them. So as a reminder, Ron used one of these on Jane Finch the last time, and if she had played a more significant role in this episode, I would have role-played the changing of her value.
Right.
I seem to recall that I had saved the normal milestone, but then I believe I had.
But then you used it to get determination.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how legit this is, but I'd like to shift one focus I'd like to rename a focus or trade out a focus for an equivalent focus.
Yeah, that's one of the options. Yeah.
Right. Right now I have diplomacy as a focus under command. I actually, considering everything that's been happening and the way certain roles have gone, I'd like to shift that to inspiration.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah.
You've also role-played the character as not really wanting to be the guy doing the talking.
Right. It actually came from his background roles that he had been brought up, somewhere a little bit like, very much like that space station, and so it was basically just sort of he was aware, of how that was done, or could occasionally draw on that. But given the events, this is where I'd like to go. It's what he
That's
does
nice.
now.
I like it. That's juicy. Ensign Yang.
I'm looking at reducing a discipline and increasing another. The only question is which ones.
It doesn't have to reflect things that you have used. It represents, like in BRP, for example, improvement is tied directly to what you have used. But here, it reflects training and retraining and reassignments and all kinds of things like that. Like you don't suddenly forget. Korskov's character is not going to suddenly forget about being diplomatic.
Right.
But
his inspirations became much better.
Suddenly, right? His state of mind right now is such that when he's diplomatic, it's in the service of inspiring the crew and not in the service of...
When inspiring, he can get more successes sometimes.
Yeah. So anyway.
So yeah. Well, I was actually inclined in the former you're talking about something that was used in play, which I'm trying to recall his navigation skills required more of his silence, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my options of reducing those
might as well be that time, huh? Right?
Yeah.
You certainly can use it to reflect experiences in play. I was just saying you don't have to.
Yeah. So
yeah, but the jokes on the bathroom wall of the Avicenna about Yang and navigation, they've reached. He's saying it's time for this meme to die. Right, we're done with this.
So I'm allowed to reduce something to a minimum of 1. Is that
yes.
correct?
Yeah. No zeros.
Yeah, no zeros, which is understandable. So I think I'm going to go with reducing medicine, which is already at a very dangerous 2. 1.
2 is not bad. But 1 is interestingly low.
No, yes.
You got to get a 1 in there. I also reduced something to 1 in one of these steps that we did.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it when I did it. But you really need those 3s and 4s. I mean, you super need those 3s and 4s, and it's you just got to say we're all rounded insofar as we have a 1. We're all well-rounded crew. We've each got a 1.
Yep.
But you're not going to be any better well-rounded than that. You're not gonna well-round your way all the way up on everything.
I have 4s in everything.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of interesting because you when you think in a traditional progressive stance, you think, why should I reduce something that I already know just to increase something up?
Right.
But the system is pretty adamant in telling you you're supposed to be kept rounded at all times. You're never getting better.
Right. The thing I'm thinking about too is that with ensemble play, and I include the supporting cast in this, with ensemble play, there are times when you say you get in the driver's seat. We need you on this science task. Go find Bob. Right. That's what we do. Right. Yeah. Bob, when it's critical, we need as much as we can. Go get Bob. So I like the idea that sooner or later we're going to see some 1s floating around and a bunch of 4s floating around sooner or later, just to get some idea of that different niche. It's not really niche in terms of like a team effectiveness. It's more like it's more like just the awareness that we all have to operate, collectively.
Yeah. All right.
So that's what I'll go with. I'm reducing medicine down to 1, increasing
Good.
science up to 3.
You could even justify it kind of like Yang is now obsessing on his fear of the transport, or it's like he's concerned about having to transport, and so he's slacking off on his medical drills, and he's flunking his CPR qualification tests on
Are you looking up the
purpose.
Federation dark web on transporter accidents? Is that what you've been spending your time doing?
That's actually a pretty good. He's probably done that before after the first one, but
Right.
now he's
How
like,
often does this happen?
yeah.
Someone's covering it up. But so if he has a low rating in his medical skills, he's less likely to be beamed aboard some ship. Who knows? Anyway, okay. Then, where did we go? There it
That
is.
was the normal milestone.
Spotlight milestones. You will get a single choice from the normal milestone list we just did, and
the ships.
yes, oops, I missed it again. And you get an additional milestone thing where you can choose 2 attributes, not disciplines this time, but attributes, and reduce one by 1 to a minimum of 7, and increase the other by 1 to a maximum of 11. That's pretty cool. Or choose a talent and replace it for another talent.
That actually I really need to do.
I imagine so. There's a lot of talents that haven't really appeared in play, and I've been thinking this is because they had no particular either romance for you, the player, or no particular use in the mission. And so there's that. Or select a supporting character used during the Spotlight mission and do one of these 2 things for them. Or choose 2 of the ship's systems. Reduce one by 1 and increase another by 1.
Damn, where are we never going to get this ship improved?
Choose 2 of the ship's departments. Reduce one by 1 and increase one by 1. Choose one of the ship's talents and replace it for another talent. So it's the Spotlight
Very big list. Much
milestone
bigger list.
is pretty interesting, I think, which is why I wanted to see it in play. And I think this Court of Opinion double episode gives us ample reasoning to bring it in. Another question I had going along with this, we'll go through this list again because it was a lot to hear, but it's probably time for the Avicenna to complete its refit.
So it's a good time. I'm actually, just to let you know, I am going to go with replacing a talent for me and replacing a talent for the ship. That's
cool.
Or one of the ship thingies.
One of the
ship options, but the talent one struck me as kind of the one to do. But
right.
I think most of the ship's talent had actually been in play, except for maybe improved reactor control. So.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure yet. But adjusting the ship in some way that just reflects what's happened strikes me as kind of a nice thing to do. Kind of fun.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, but I believe there's an actual mechanism for refitting. Like there's different results for refitting, and which is not, bundled into this spotlight thing or milestone.
Right. The refit is separate from experience for the ship.
Exactly.
It's based on the age of the ship. It's based on Fiat, basically.
Yeah.
And the process is a very simple one. It works exactly this way. Choose a mission profile and the numbers for that will be enhanced.
Yeah.
So it's adding a +1 somewhere. So this is the refit is the way to get a ship to get a 12, in something, and where it might not normally be open without a spotlight, and that kind of thing. So in the history of the Avicenna, it had, when it was still the Dauntless, it had received a communications refit, which is why its communications score is higher than you might expect, and which has caused me no end of personal amusement at the number of times the crew of the Avicenna have refused to talk to people. We have the most sophisticated communications package in Starfleet. I don't want to talk to them, man.
And we don't use it.
So
We communicate with our photon cannons.
Right. So, for example, if you did change the talent of the ship and you're looking at things, it will fundamentally change the character of the ship. Like, imagine one of its talents is extended shuttle base.
Right. No,
Well,
looking at the talents as a list, I actually don't really feel like changing those.
Well, what about the
unless-
rapid fire torpedo launcher?
That's what? Now that I think about it, yeah, I'm tired. Let's not be a ship of war. Let's change that out. Let's give the ship some more of its rescue capacity. Whatever that may be. So Anthony, you're right. I think
It actually
that's
makes a lot
probably
of
not called
sense
for.
after,
I agree.
after the
I
two
agree.
rescue missions.
Yeah.
Look at the
Right.
Potemkin. They had nice.
I know, exactly. I mean, we did that with, if we could do that without the multiple photon firing, who needs it? Right? Who needs it?
So I think it's an interesting mechanism for you to, kind of like when we look at the Star Trek movies, and you're going to get a new Enterprise for some reason,
Blowing up, that sort of thing.
yeah. A little thing like blowing up. The idea that you can fundamentally change its character in that way. So if you did opt to remove the rapid fire photon torpedo system, then you'd finally have the space for the advanced sickbay.
That's what I think we're doing.
Yeah,
The ship
that's
gets the
it,
advanced
yeah.
sick bay. We totally need that. I remember thinking about that when we started play, and I even thought to myself, we better get that thing as soon as possible, just to match our notions.
Right.
And now we've got the chance to do it, so we will.
Yeah,
You guys went back and forth over it and the extended shuttle base.
Right. And I'm glad we have the extended shuttle base. That's actually been a lot of fun because shuttles. And then but now it's time. I mean, Jim's been working on it from day one, right? He's been rearranging the gorilla skulls on the shelf enough times. It's time. Give him a little something.
Here's
right?
a bigger room for you now.
We have a couple of scenes of him using the hallway.
Yeah. Well, there's and also, I mean, we've refitted it like in pragmatic terms, like you just said, as part of the color of a scene more than once.
Yeah.
So
we can see where it comes from. So cool. I like that. That's cool. So that means.
And the fact that taking the weapon, the Dauntless legacy off, and coming into being.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And you were going to change one of Korsakov's talents or something else, but you haven't decided on it yet.
Yes, I did. I have shifted. I've taken away the cautious, which is linked to command.
Oh yeah.
So as you can see, I'm redoing the command structure for Korsakov, right? And because that actually went with the diplomacy in my mind, and I'm replacing it with another command talent, which I'm eligible for, which is advisor. I am the first officer. I need to have, and you know what that reflects for me? Remember how he said, like at least once, maybe twice in that episode, that the new captain is okay, but he's not one of us yet?
Yeah.
Now he is.
Oh, cool.
Now he is.
Yeah. I like advisor as a talent. I think that's pretty slick, and it's a good character to have it. Ensign Yang, do you need me to go through the list again, or are you looking at it yourself?
I'm looking at it. And then I lost it. Now I'm finding it again.
It's on page 140. I wouldn't put my worst enemy into trying to find something under pressure in this book, even if that's the first page.
The finding is one thing for me, at least the way that the PDF reads, and this may not be a PDF design thing. It just may be the luck of the draw of any number of things. It's when I'm trying to read the paragraphs and you have the two columns and you're trying to go up to the top of the next column or go to the next page, and you are always going to bounce to the wrong page, like up or down. And
like
after like 3 times of that, I'm like exhausted. I'm just tired.
That happened to me here tonight. I tried to get
I thought I saw you wince in a familiar fashion.
Yeah, it's like, what is going on?
Yeah. I know that look. Yeah.
All right, Ensign Yang.
I'm not sure if Yang wants to replace any of his talents. Although there has one that I believe I've never even get to use so far, which was the one that I was quite excited to use. But he's never been in a position that he could. I think the closest that he got to use that talent was in the pilot, when he had to, work around with the colonists. And I was like, oh, maybe he'll get to use it again, but hasn't since. So I'm not sure, but I'm still hoping. I'm still hoping to use that talent.
No character sheet survives contact with the enemy. Is that what we're? Yeah.
Oddly enough, isn't it? Focuses. I think most of them have served Yang well, like as a characterization. So I don't think I want to take any of those away. So I think my only remaining options are the numbers, or the supporting characters, or the ship. But I think the ship is going to get a lot of significant boost. So I'm looking at the numbers of the ship. I think everything seems fine. Like nothing really needs adjusting to reflect the ship's newer status.
Right.
So if I'm thinking of supporting characters, which is oddly enough not I don't think we had a real spotlight on anyone in particular in terms of Yang's circle of influence. Like Parker was there, but she never really had a chance to roll any real dice, I think. And I'm not sure if we need like Mondragon's gonna get his value, I believe, for appearing.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. I don't think we need to like give him something extra as a result.
Yeah. I would lean toward the characters benefiting from the great risks that they took and the amount of activity that they took, rather than
giving it to someone,
the supporting cast. But
yeah.
Unlike the last time, where the people that you played were mostly supporting characters.
Yeah, which is the thing else. Which I believe that was most of the milestones was spent on them. I think that's how I remembered it. There was a lot. There was that period where there was a lot of significant change to the numbers or talents or values to those supporting characters, because so many of them reappeared. Yeah. So I guess that really narrows it down to an attribute. Now, Yang's attributes. Well, he could use some better numbers for, say, reason, because he's been using that a lot. But at the
kind of nice role playing wise too, right? I mean, you're thinking more. Right?
He's improving his science. If he's going to improve his science, he might as well improve his reason at it. And I believe this is also done at the expense of some of another number.
Yes, it's down 1, up 1.
Down 1.
The minimum reduction is to 7, and the maximum reduction is up to 11.
Right. Although this is probably a good time to bring up that Yang has a special limit because of anti-potential. Is that correct?
Which means you can't have any 12s, as I recall.
Yeah. Can't have 12s. So, all right. So, presence is out then. But that's the thing. Looking at attributes, I can remember almost for each attribute where Yang has demonstrated those numbers. Like control is obvious. Fitness was the only reason why he could actually stand toe to toe with Finch, because they had the exact numbers. Presence, no, actually that's probably a good time to bring down Presence. It was his best attribute. And he hasn't done a lot of presencing.
That's true.
Yeah, I think they'll make a lot of sense. I'll bring down Presence to 10, bring Reason up to 9, which makes it uniform across the other attributes. So he doesn't have a weak stat anymore, per se.
So you're going to reduce
Presence
down to
10.
To 10, and bringing up
Reason
to 9. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's.
He's become more studious.
Well, actually, I think he looks more like
Oddly
himself.
enough.
He looks more like himself. I mean, this is more like he's been. This is more like my portrait of Yang than the previous numbers.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right.
So I guess that's it.
That's it. That's experience. And the refit, all I need to know is what system you, the players, think should be refitted. So it had the Avicenna in its past had its communications system done. I'm thinking maybe you don't have the ship before you. So the systems.
I have the sheet.
Okay.
I mean, I can call up the sheet, right? It's right here on it.
Right off the bat, if I'm being really honest, I think we need to improve the computers. It probably has caused us more failures than it should, and we've been using it
have never
way
worked.
more times than it should. I'm ready to take off weapons to 8 and bring computers up to 8.
It's kind of funny. Yeah. I do not remember a role involving the Avicenna's computers where they delivered a success. They may have, but I don't remember one.
There probably were, but
we keep asking for the assist. I mean, the computer's kind of your jack of all trades for assists, right? I mean, can I get an assist from the ship? How? Computers.
We use computers for sensors. We use computers for the data banks.
Yeah.
Which is, the tools that we've used a bit more. And if we're going to take off rapid torpedo fire, we might as well take off weapons.
Right.
That's my
That sounds great to me. Besides, I like the librarian.
Yeah.
I like the archivist guy.
Yeah.
So,
bring up Tomlinson more.
Right. We can, exactly. If we're going to play the guy, his freaking machine ought to be able to work. So,
right.
Well, maybe that's why he's working with us, because he's the only guy who can figure it out.
That's right.
I'm working with the lousy library.
Who configured this mess?
And I think even stat-wise, Tomlinson is actually probably one of the more competent stat-wise from the other crew.
Might be interesting to play him a bit more.
Yeah.
All right. Then there it is. Refits. Refits, communications, computer refits are software updates to refine and enhance operation, as well as new computer cores and more expansive archive memory. Doesn't that sound thrilling?
That's practically pornographic in post-2000 terms. all those words. I mean, it sounds like a brochure.
So this will improve the computer system from 7 to 8.
Just straight up without any.
That's it. Nothing has to be.
That's
reduced.
Great.
Isn't that great?
That's even better.
All right. So computers are now 8, and the rapid fire torpedo launcher is gone, and advanced sickbay is present. Cool. All right. And that brings experience and reputation to a close. And we filled up 2 hours with that because we're a bunch of fertile imaginators.
It was an important process for me. I like to see where we have come. What has come of this? We see it for us, we see it for the ship.
It's starting to get a grasp of the whole reputation checklist thing. You know, how the yeses and the nos. Well, first of all, how do they reflect on how you can, like I said, you can do good things but still get reprimands for it, which is just because of the political side of Star Trek Adventures. Yeah.
Oh shoot!
Are you overshooting time?
Right, or unexpected results, and
which makes things a lot more interesting than I get 500 XP and I level up and all my numbers increase for that.
Right, it's definitely different. And what you were talking about before about how the characters don't really improve.
Yeah.
There are elements to experience which allows them to improve, but they are very rare, and it's charted out. Character needs a certain number of milestone improvements and another number of spotlight improvements in order to earn an arc improvement, and that's how characters get the major changes. But if you look at the published NPCs for the franchises, like the original series, Bridge Crew, Kirk, Spock, and Bones and Chekhov and Sula and Uhura and Scotty, or the Next Generation crew, you will not see numbers that are remarkably different from the ones that you have been playing with. Except some of the veteran characters that in the show were older or higher ranked may have a 5 in something. So it's really not about the character getting tougher. It's about the character matching your expectations for the mission that you want to play.
Which is actually very interesting from a game master's perspective, that the characters can evolve to fit with what the game masters plan in a certain way.
Or if we didn't have that plan, we pick up the book and we're learning to play, and we randomly generated the characters, and they are just random, but we like it
in a certain direction that the characters go.
Yeah, we chose patrol duty, for our mission. We don't have any combat characters. This system will let you move toward them learning. We can actually see them learn to pilot a warship or a hospital ship, or whatever it is, to become diplomats.
Yeah. Kind of interesting. Very interesting. The milestone system in itself, with the degrees of milestone, I think that's also very interesting as well. Although I'm not sure, maybe we need to do this a couple more times, and I'm not trying to I don't think I'm going to intentionally try to break it, but it does raise it does raise the question of is that open to abuse? Like, if I know what sort of influences or what sort of negatives and positives will turn out to be, am I going to try to flip the numbers?
Oh, you mean like you play with the checklist next to your character sheet?
Yeah, that sort of thing. Which is, I don't think it's a failure of the rules per se, but when rules allow players to behave badly, you're going to expect some players to behave badly.
Right. And I guess more of a social dynamic rather than a game dynamic, that
Yeah, but in the sense that like certain rules may reward bad behavior, and while other rules may say it doesn't matter if you behave badly because nobody comes out better out of it.
Right. Like some of the horror stories that you see people share online, like help me run this game. I've got characters who always shoot to kill instead of using stun. They don't seem to understand Starfleet, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so that would have an effect on reputation, especially if there was fear, like the person. It might not be the game master, but anyway, running through the checklist and then getting to the did you use lethal force, and of course I use lethal force, and then it turning into an argument rather than just a yes or no. Yeah. Could cause stress. But I don't know if you could game the system, like I'm not that mathematically inclined. I can't look at this and say, well, if I get this many, like right now your reputation was 10, which means it's 50-50 whether you'll get a commendation or not. And so if you don't get any commendations, right, if you fail that roll, then we move into reprimands, and then bam, you get a bunch of reprimands, and that makes logical sense, right? You were not commended, therefore there was a problem, so here's your punishment.
Yeah.
Oh, Ron, you're muted.
Sure, you don't want to keep me that way.
Of course.
Yeah. But yes, I was merely agreeing that if they find one thing, if you fail, they're going to find them all, right? They're going to find everything they don't like, right? I get that.
They start looking.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. Like Kate, while you were on the phone, Casey had mentioned maybe it's possible to game the system, the reputation system, and
it seems like that's kind of like a. Yeah, my thinking on such a thing is that if we're talking about it in the most negative possible sense, that the person is not caring, right, about what's happening, then if that's the case, then the horse is already out of the barn, and there isn't any.
Yeah.
There isn't any
issue.
correct. Yeah. There's no more correction in the system.
It's not going to be a happy
ending. Change that.
Right.
It's not going to say, "Oh, look at this reward system. I better change my ways." No, I suspect that's not going to happen.
You're being a dick right now, and if you look at page 130, it says, "Don't be a dick." So you can't.
Oh, geez, I didn't see that rule. Right. Yeah, seriously. But that does bring up the kind of converse point, which I think is relevant, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because, again,
it's not going to have a happy ending.
Right. Well, for a lot of things, but the main issue is what is the downside, I'll go all the way. Let's say that a person is committed to the fiction and is playing in a fashion that we find, or that the person finds, because who else, is very intuitive, very much, from the character, and the character is fictional, so it's the person, but we'll let the metaphysicians work over that one. But you're in it, you're into it, you're playing. So when one turns to the numbers and says, okay, I'm going to take one of those and subtract that one, because that's the optimal, that's the optimal hit, the way the situation works. Does that break, violate, defy, ruin, deviate from what we were thinking of as that person's emotional, imagined engagement? I don't think it does. I think that that's been demonized. I think that if somebody is saying, if I say, I want to get the best phaser strike I can, and I take 5 minutes with or without consultation with someone else, to say, all right, I really want to make sure I am using the mechanics of this system to get that phaser strike, so it's only targeting that one system and it's got the most intensive effect and all those things. Oh shoot, I've got a talent. Okay, wait, I got a talent. How does that work, Anthony? Right? For someone hypothetical,
Mhm.
and I'm going to say hypothetical, but I have had conversations with people who say exactly this. So that's why I'm treating it as a reality. Which is say, look at you break your character and treat it like a game of chess. Look at you, look at you stop playing so that you can do, look at you basically stop immersing.
Right. 'Cause immersing
Right.
is mistaken as being only one thing, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And this is my argument, is that I'm partly responding to you, Anthony, in some of your reflections right now, which is that I see no shame in this. I see no failure of immersion. I also think that if we consult across players to do it, or with you to do it, right, including the strategizing of, wait, how much threat gets us what, that kind of thing. Again, I see no shame in this. I see no failure of being, playing, doing Korsakov. If I elbow KC in the eye and, take over Yang in some bullying way while doing that, I find that deeply, deeply, for me, that's if not table flip, that's the elbow in the eye back. It's like, get your hands off my guy.
Sure, but those are two different things.
That's what I'm saying. I agree. Those are two completely different things.
And different
And
from
so,
what I was reflecting on.
well, no, I know that too. But I am, however, dealing with the reflection of what happens when we don't misuse each other's authority over their characters, and we do chat up the numbers in the interest of playing our characters. And I don't mean interest like keeping them alive and shit like that. I mean interest in being who they are.
Being who they are, yes,
And
using the
right,
system to have
and
them
this
show
system's
up.
really good for this. This system has a lot of really, I mean, it's got debatable, almost too many widgets, so many levers, right, for this.
Right.
It's got a lot, right? Too much or
Does.
not, I don't know, but a lot. So under those circumstances, I'll just, since this is a public discussion, I mean, I'll sit here as the advocate of being, immersion man, whatever you want to call that, whatever you want to say is immersion. I'm going to say, we do it. We do it. And if you see us punching numbers while we do it, that's right. We do it.
Right.
And so
immersion is a different thing. But
right.
I want to back up to a point, because I think we drove past it, which was in the reputation system. If the player is answering the questions, we could look at it that the player is trying to answer the questions truthfully, or the player is answering the questions to be disruptive. But the one we didn't really talk about is the player is not wanting to be disruptive, but is not answering the questions truthfully. They kind of just stop at the number of dice that they want in order to have that number of dice because of math, if you see what I'm saying. So cheating, I guess, is the word I'm
if I draw a hard line between disruptive and not disruptive, maybe he just stepped over the line, but I think of that as over the line.
Because cheating is a disruptive activity, but
yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm afraid I'm not very sympathetic to that. I mean, the notion, how is this handled in a game of this kind? I mean, is it more like the collective group? We all just, it's kind of like when your friend or me, right? At one point, I do something that is, well, I'm going to bring in this trait. In those games, you get another die if you bring in this trait kind of thing. And I say, I'm going to bring in my horse my horse training skill on this one. And everybody at the table looks at you and they're just like, take a hike, and you kind of go, all right, you got me. And you're okay with it. You went a little too far and maybe you were just like
hopeful,
deoxygenated for a second or whatever it was, but you go a little too far and everybody looks at you and they're just like, you ain't getting that horse. You ain't getting that die. And we're like, yeah, you're right. I'm not. And we go on. So, I mean, that could happen, right? I mean, the person balks and says, I think that's a yes, don't you? And everybody's like, you have got to be kidding me. Right. And it's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm not going to fight for that one. I get you. All right.
So which of these were you leaning toward, Casey, when you brought the subject up, right? The guy who wants to break the game for everybody.
Well,
that's one
extreme. That's one extreme, and which is why I think that the reputation system is sort of a check and balance. But then again, like in some cases, even a check and balance can be balanced in a certain degree.
yes, no.
Yeah. It's like I can minimize the number of yeses on my positive to increase my dice. And even though I may minimize my negative influences, which makes my difficulty lower, but as we've seen many times, that many dice doesn't always necessarily means better chances of succeeding.
Exactly. There's an existential quality to this. The existential quality is you can do good, and it doesn't turn out well for you anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you can do good and do worse instead.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. What's the joke? I mean, Superman does good, you do well. Right.
So in some groups, because there's no actual procedure, there's a rule. So we could imagine, I think, a group out there looking at these questions as a group, and everybody has the same answer to every question. And then everybody has their own dice to roll, and then everyone rolls their dice and result. You see what I mean? Or the game master sitting back and saying, yes, no, deciding for everybody.
That changes the whole question, actually.
Well, there's tricky aspects of the phrasing that if we do it the individual way we've been doing, I think all of us have been tentative about taking full ownership over words like necessary or properly. We've not if I'm thinking back at all the times we've done this,
every time,
I don't think any of us has ever owned one of those words as the speaker. We've always leaned at each other and said, I'm thinking necessarily, because I really don't want to be that. I don't want to be that one who stepping over the line the way I just said is perhaps forgivable, but I still don't want to do it.
Right. We feel the line, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it. And so to me, the trust among me and Casey in particular, regarding our characters is, and noting that your judgment over words like properly and stuff, I'm good with you kind of having the rubber stamp on those, right? So to me, I'd much rather kick it into the trust and the acknowledgement than into, well, I think it's proper.
Right. I think we want to hear people say it, right? We want to hear people say why they think Timmons felt the mission was a success, rather.
Right.
But I think if we looked around different Star Trek Adventures groups, we would find one of those three methodologies or procedures in place.
The reward mechanics, like we were saying a minute ago, are never going to become actual values of play. But if you do have values of play, it's the other way works though. If you do have values of play, the group often shapes the reward mechanics to express them, right? That happens. Many great games have been born in design from that exact phenomenon. So I'm, good.
Yeah. Right. So, one question that I had was, at this stage of play, how comfortable are you, gentlemen, with the notion of taking on the game master's role, sailing into the core book alone?
Believe me, if I do it, I'm not going alone. I'll be asking as many rules questions as I did before. Believe me.
Well, I did, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have two reasons for that. One is I've read the book, and I know I won't be able to find it, so more eyes is better. But the other is we agreed to learn to play. So if I had played by saying you need 3 successes on control and con roll, it would have been a very different effect on the possibility of learning.
You taught a lot. I have no idea how to deal with difficulty and resistance when we started playing. No idea where they would be coming from. And you spent a lot of time teaching us about what you were doing with threat.
Right.
That I get. I mean, I completely agree with you. I feel it's still weird. But
yeah, you have
but
to do it.
Anyway,
right? Yeah.
we have the consideration of whether I want to continue playing. There's the time issue is the footprint on my life, and I'm sure I'm not alone. It's huge. It's huge. And then there's but if I was gung ho, then at the very least I would say, let's reduce let's stay closer to the time window. Let's I'm going to try and we're going to be leaner and meaner about doing things, whatever, and stuff like that. My gung ho is, however, also diminished, and so therefore it's kind of a question as to whether we let the American family in 1970 continue watching the adventures of the Avicenna and enjoy whatever they may be, throughout its no doubt successful season. And we just happen not to see it. And that's for me, that is an option. And I don't use the timing, the time, all the excuses, all of the usual reasons. There are some times when those reasons are real, but I think a lot of times they're not. And so I'm not gonna hide behind that.
It's okay not to like something or not to want to do something, even if you like it. And
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's so many things that are likable about this. So many things that are likable about this, and it pains me not to see, the travails of Ensign Yang, who has every pick a relationship, right? Romance, roommate, rank, crew function, family, pick a relationship, and that's a Yang episode. We've got one. So it pains me not to put the poor bastard through all the ringers we can think of. But yeah, I mean, there's the question of, without rancor, without saying, thank God, fuck you, goodbye.
But the question still stands. Do you feel
but
like
the question
you
still
could
stands.
run it?
As far as GMing, I would actually be pretty, as of not until maybe 2 episodes ago, but as of 2 episodes ago, I felt the shift. I doubt I would be very good at it in terms of the stereotypical GM who plays the book like a piano, for all of you. I very much doubt I would be that GM, but I
don't know if we'll ever see that guy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, no kidding. I completely agree.
It's on page 140, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there is all those. Well, not only that, but there's also all those sections on the guide to GMing, advice for GMing, and they're all seem to be written for that guy.
For that
So,
guy. Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
But anyway, but with that proviso that I would definitely be a beginner. There are things, there some of it is just doing what I've learned, and then other things are, well, now that I've thought about that, maybe I could try it this way and do certain things in certain ways. But the answer is, with a big warning sign, beware, beginning GM. Driving, what is it? Student driver, with the student driver sign, I would do it. Yeah.
And the game lends itself to distribution, like with the roles, like you're going to be responsible for all the weapons stuff, and you're responsible for all the sensor stuff, and
I tried really hard for preparing for that last session. I tried really hard to have all those rules out in front of me.
I have to say that was really rewarding to see you guys with your notes and coming in with, what, I want to use sense weakness. And it's like, do you? Because I didn't have to say, well, you could sense weakness.
It's so, yeah.
Because then it feels like you're not letting people play.
It's
or learn.
It's tough. Yeah. Casey, what do you think? I mean, in terms of that question.
Okay. I'm still not fully grasping how it would run. I know how it plays, but I don't think I'm still getting a real picture of how it should run. I don't think it's necessarily a difference of mechanics. Like, I can understand the mechanics to run it, but I think it's more of a mindset thing.
From the preparation point of view?
Yeah, from a preparation point of view. And how do you structure an episode? As much as I say threat is a tool, when you're on the driver's seat as a GM, you're like, how do I use this tool? Or what is this tool affording me as a GM, which is very different from as a player.
Right. And I certainly wouldn't be giving the standard example the way that I've been running this campaign.
Well, I mean, those are good examples. I think those are, it's better to have examples rather than not and trying to imagine. But at the same time, I think because my understanding of threat as it is, just as one of the many tools, is that where do I insert threat, or those they're like bigger questions as a GM rather than as a player. How do I use threat? When do I use threat? Is this the right time to use threat? When is threat being abusive? Is a
I don't know. My thinking too is as far as I can tell, the answer is spend it while you got it, right?
So, which is maybe it's just the D&D brain in me, like when you use threat to call it reinforcements, do you think about, am I calling too much reinforcements, and it breaks the whole thing?
I think that's a good point. That
which is it's I think it's probably more like a me problem rather than a system problem. But when me meets system,
right, sure,
we kind of have to reconcile that for a while. And I think most of the answers I need are already in the core rulebook section. It's just a matter of taking time to
in the game master section,
and then trying to understand what it's saying rather than what it says.
Sure.
That's tough with role playing. That really is a very important point about role playing.
Which is why I think this game feels much tougher than your normal, say, D&D, which is like, this is the system as a GM. Whereas in Star Trek Adventures, it feels more like this is how you should think, rather than this is how you should do it.
It seems kind of interesting to me because the uses of threat are things that game masters have been doing since time immemorial.
Yeah.
For the most part. Yeah. And so it's merely a budget, really, for doing it. And so concurrently, the perhaps useful notion that if you don't have the threat to spend for it, or you don't want to spend that much threat for it, then you can't throw in reinforcements, that you have literally a budget. I mean, in every word,
and it
and
feels
that's
good.
a good thing. Yeah, exactly. It's a useful thing, and it's not the first game to do that, but it certainly, has created a complex economy for the budget, compared to some games. But so I guess I don't see the skills as the tough part, but I'm also thinking that there's also just plain the desire, right? Just the desire. I mean, the incorporating all that study, incorporating looking back at the episodes we've played or other people's games, and watching Anthony's upcoming game, if I'm not mistaken, right, that you wrote about.
We're not going to stream that one, but maybe I'll do recaps.
Okay.
But
the whatever it is, I mean, there's some whatever is to be learned from those. I'm sure there's plenty, but the idea here is, unless you want to, I mean, and there's no obligation to want to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have to. nobody's paying.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying anybody for these. Sad to say, I mean, so except extremely indirectly, through YouTube advertising or something, but or patrons and stuff. But really, it's not. There's not even a gold star.
Yeah, for me, if I had written an adventure, to sell to Modiphius kind of thing, and so it had to have a complete arc of locations and complications, with the expectation that play might differ from it. But here is, if you wrote the traditional buy bot scenario thing, if I had approached play that way, then it would be possible to sit there and write advice about running those scenes. Make sure to put a difficulty 0 check here, because the next 2 scenes are really going to be difficult. So don't starve your players of momentum. Or here is where you spend threat to do this. And you could write it that way, because the
it's
perfect
also pre-scripting the entire play. But go on, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But
which is strange, but which is strange for this system, because it's very difficult to pre-script anything with this system. You don't know
unless you headlock everybody at the table and do it anyway.
Yeah,
which you could theoretically. Yeah.
You could choose not to roll very often. Just accept. Yeah, your character can do that. That your character can do that. So you could get through the standard hurdles where the dice might have something to say.
Yeah.
And always have lots of assistance available. Always have lots of very effective gear available, and then
bring in every trait as an advantage a ton of times and stuff like that.
Yeah. Right. So then the small amount of threat you get automatically is enough. If the scene feels too easy, you bring in some reinforcements. If something seemed traumatic, assign it as a complication. If you need the NPCs to go first, pay for it, and then the rest of it takes care of itself. I mean, you can just do it that way. But I find that the dice have enough swing, and it's, as evidenced by all of our conversations, there's that moment like, do I spend momentum or not? If so, how? Right? The long roll is a thing. It's a process that you go through. And, that has a real outcome on play. You're not buying successes at the end. All you can do is buy opportunity. But you can still roll a fistful of 20s. You actually rolled 4 20s on 5 dice. So,
Well, there's a point we've been talking about for a while at Adept Play, which is that we should focus a very great deal in game design and play, design as a subset of play, on why on earth were we rolling these things? And instead of talking about how they simulate the realism of the acts, we should talk a little more about what it means to fail in terms of continuing to play, and what happens now. And I really do think this game is big on, if you roll a lot, you are making the entire thing bigger. You're getting more situational elements. You're making situational elements tougher or easier. You're bringing in more nuances of who wants what. And so in a way, by choosing to roll a lot, what you're doing is you're allowing everything to become richer, and I'm even going to go a little further, right? All the way back to our discussion of all the reputation, et cetera, and rank and all that. Is it so bad to get to get hosed in that role? I mean, look at what just happened to me, right? Look at what just happened. And I look at what happens in terms of what I did with all the reprimands. I love them.
Right.
I love them. There's nothing. Did I lose? Right? Did I get screwed? No, I am thrilled. Right? And that to me is more than enough argument for at least nodding at the dice and saying, these things do a thing. They're not just some weird auxiliary to the GM just running the game the way they want. Right? They do a thing. Right. And without that thing, I don't get to look at my Korsakov now and say, and this is where we have come. Right. And I like that. Does that make any sense? I mean,
no, I can really understand that, because again, this is one of those D&D minded things. When you see reprimands and you see like, oh, this is
the word is a little off-putting. I did flinch when I the word made me flinch. This is true.
But that's the thing. Even like
reprimand.
After so many episodes, I'm seeing that Star Trek Adventures is really more about peaks and valleys. Your characters really they can go down, but when they down, they'll just go up, and it's just a matter of which point are you in the peak and valley. Yeah, so it's always a growing process. You can't really conclusively say that your character has benefited or has made losses.
Right. Which is tied to the mechanics that you don't have, an up and up and up. Yeah. Right, improvement mechanism. So.
Oh well, yeah, in that regard. But like fictionally, the character's life can change a lot, or it's a very lethal game, even with all the safety valves of not.
I'm surprised I lived through the disruptor blast. Tell you the truth, we did squeak through that one. Yeah.
Right. So they gave us three valves. Right. You could spend 2 momentum. I don't have any momentum. You can spend a point of determination. I don't have any of that either.
You can avoid injury.
You're playing with Anthony. We don't have any. Sorry, go on. Teasing you on that one, which is good. Adversity is good, right? Just no question. Just let you know.
You're not teasing me. You guys used it.
Fair.
So I can take a complication and avoid the injury, but regardless, now you can't avoid any more injuries. And if this was combat, then there's probably another injury headed your way. It was quite easy for a typical combat character to score 5 to 10 damage, and for a non-combat character to be in and around 5 damage. And that's interesting to think about. Different from other 2D20 games, in that the property, right, the intellectual property of Star Trek has people just being shot once and disappearing, right? So that's also brought into the game. So you've got a lot of the character is not going to get tougher or stronger or faster or smarter, probably, and you are in control of if they do or not when you get your milestones. Do I just want to change this talent for that talent is a very different thing from do I want to raise my attribute raise my discipline. So that's kind of interesting. But so with that added dose of lethality in there, but again, you can just not play a lethal game.
Another way of looking at it is that with a bit of improvement, or at least focusing on the things you're good at, you're going to have a little more momentum and stuff in the bank.
Yeah.
Because yes, if you're hit by a phaser, you'll disappear. But if you are a main character with a high reputation and with a bunch of, rolling, that means you dodge the phasers more. You dodge the blast more. You hit the dirt and the tree disappears right behind you.
Exactly.
Right. So
hopefully so that's what I wanted to play with. I wanted to play with the mechanisms of altering the published adventure but deleting the published adventure.
Right.
And that was a fine-tuning process we're still going through, because in the case of questions of duty, as we brought up in reflection, putting it in the setting of an existing Star Trek episode gives you lots of assumptions, or assumptions isn't the right word, but gives you a lot of baggage or detail.
Content, tons of
content is
content.
the word I want.
Yeah.
Whereas the first, in the pilot, setting it in Xenon 5, there is none of that content. The only content is just Starfleet content. So I did some of this on purpose. So we want to be Starfleet officers ostensibly to play Star Trek Adventures. So let's have Starfleet in action, doing Starfleet stuff. And then, okay, well, let's bring in original series era stuff with diplomats and politics and Orions causing trouble and blah blah blah. And then for Court of Opinion, it's the characters. Let's see, now that you know how the mechanics work, and now that that values have this kind of push and pull, and the numbers have this kind of push and pull, and what stress means and all this stuff. Well, who are these characters anyway? Was kind of the extent of my
each of
scripting.
us we're arriving with kind of our own Elon of Troyes level of backstory, relationships, stuff. I wonder whether some attention should I play again, especially making a character. I'm wondering whether I would aim for a leaner character to begin with, and minimize things that I roll, minimize things I have choices over, so that the character was pretty lean in content coming into play, because the characters bulk up fast with their stuff. So even starting with Court of Opinion, you still, I appreciate what you're saying about drop the characters on the station and, what are their problems, right? What are their things? I get that completely. It's just, we had a lot.
Sure.
The character sheets answered you with, a wealth of things to throw at us. Legitimately,
I don't find
but
the characters to be overwhelming, but they all remind me of the characters that you guys made, like with the amount of strings to pull on, or the amount of hooks to hang ideas or personality on. But yeah, they aren't just a name and some numbers and an equipment list, and I don't know who the guy is until I have to say something, and then suddenly he's Scottish, and I don't know why, and
Right.
It's what he would be for the rest of the game.
Yeah. Why did I do that? But anyway, so yeah, I was curious about how, if your buddies say, "Dude, you're playing Star Trek Adventures, can we play tonight?" How you would. I would expect you to say, "No, we can't play tonight," but
It's definitely in my zone of. I mean, I as I asked you a couple of weeks ago, I'm thinking about buying the text,
Right.
which really shouldn't be a very hard decision whether or not to buy a role-playing game, right? I mean, since when is the answer no? So it's just when I get around to it. I would like to have the physical text to thump on a table and flip pages
Yeah.
as just a piece of doing that. But anyway, I do have to go. Thank you,
Oh,
both
right. Yes.
gentlemen, for having me
No
spend this
problem.
time with you. And I don't know if we have any outstanding questions remaining. We don't. I don't remember a
Nope. I was just
set of
about to segue into a different question, but I have to go as well. So thanks for noticing the time. I would have gotten myself in trouble.
Yeah, off we go. Casey, I hope to see you again in some way, shape, or form. Um, if you want to, connect up, please feel free.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
I am following some of your videos on your YouTube, so
Mhm.
you.
Hope so. I appreciate
I'll
it.
see you. Whether you see
Oh,
me
no.
is whether you see me is probably the
Oh,
hard
it's
question.
okay. I suppose if you're making YouTube videos, it's not fair to be creeped out by that. So I guess that's just part of that, just comes with the territory. So fair enough.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, gents.
Goodbye, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.
All right. Well, this brings us to the end of, well, everything. This brings us to the end of Star Trek Adventures First Response. And as I said way back in the way too long introduction, it's nice that it does get to have a conclusion. So my thanks again for Casey and Ron for taking the time to be a part of this this evening, and I appreciate how seriously and how in depth you took it, and I'm happy to see that we were able to answer all the questions about experience and answer all the questions about reputation and apply them in a pretty definite seeming way to the characters. So it's as if at any moment we could resume play and leap back into First Response, knowing who these characters have become over these 4 episodes, and knowing where they're headed into whatever happens next. So I appreciate that quite a bit. One question that we didn't answer, which I said we would answer, is the ultimate fate of the crew. And I talked about the permutations of that in the introduction. So how did the results speak to me? How do I want to interpret them and make use of my Game Master's fiat to describe the dice results? Just a second. Well, the use of the reprimands is pretty specific, and it guides us in a direction that, although the crew is under some, we could use the dramatic word shadow, they're under some shadow, it's not really about what they did in the fulfilling of their duty and their wholehearted commitment to fulfilling the mission assigned to them, but also the mission of the ship. So it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to imagine a situation where the bulk of the crew was lost. And as Ensign Yang's particular punishment is the retribution of the dice upon Ensign Yang, is focused more on his personal foibles, his trauma over the transporter of all things, right? Rather than something else. He wasn't considered to be derelict in his duties. He wasn't called out for his brief moment of understandable panic in a near airless environment, etc., etc. Instead, it's his growing fear of the transporter that matters to people. So I think we can safely assume that Joshua was among those who were recovered. So, a bleak outcome. A Federation ship is destroyed, and destroyed at the hands of a Federation task force sent to bring it to heal, sent to undo the wrong that was done to its crew. And a significant portion of that crew was lost. But a significant portion of that crew was saved. And the legacy of that, of the mission, the legacy of the division, the legacy of the Avicenna will carry on. And the idea that we ended with of the Avicenna being fully converted to a ship of peaceful intention, removing the last vestiges of its birth as a ship of war, and completing its transformation into an aid and relief vessel designed to bring help to those who need it, I think is a fitting tribute and a fitting response to experiences like the one that we played through. And so, this brings us to the end of the official playlist for Star Trek Adventures First Response. There will be more Star Trek videos, I imagine, on the channel, as I'm still playing it in a different group. And I'm building up to the point where I have more things to say about the system, such as the different topical videos which appeared in this playlist. So there'll be more. But Star Trek Adventures First Response for the foreseeable futures has come to an end. So for those of you who followed along, the hours and hours and hours of video, thank you for your attention and participation. And I hope to see you in the next series of game learning, whatever that may be and whoever that may be with. So thanks again. Thanks again to Ron and KC, and take care.